My fusion system. Fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapters 401 to 410. Chapter 401. Platinum tier weapon for you. Watson, you said you could repair my bracelet. Do you mean it? Lily turned her head to look at the bracelet in Watson's hand. As a member of the Campbell family, even though her main interest was magic, she still had some understanding of magical tools. She did not look at it carefully when she bought it previously, so she fell for it. When she went home to use the bracelet, she realized that something was wrong. A normal gold tier bracelet could withstand the same level of magic or combat aura. However, when she bought the bracelet home and injected gold tier magic elements into it, it was repelled. At that time, Lily thought that the bracelet was too old and had some strange restrictions to it. When she tried to increase the amount of magic, the bracelet broke, and she finally reacted. It turned out that the repelling effect was the reaction of low-tier items to high-tier energy. Low-tier items could not withstand such high-tier energy, so they were repelled. After she reacted, she immediately found Charlotte and went to the shop to get her money back. Lily knew that the bracelet was impossible to repair. Even if her family's craftsmen were to fix it, it would still be impossible. After all, who could repair a pile of junk? She went to the stall here at that time to vent her anger at the shop owner. She did not expect Watson to say that he could help her repair it. She felt a little doubtful. Watson shook his head at Lily's question. I don't like to joke. I mean what I said. Did you say that you would forget about the matter if someone repaired the bracelet? Now that I'm here to help you fix it, you should not dwell on that matter. Even if you're from the Campbell family, you don't want to be surrounded by so many people, do you? Watson pointed out casually. Lily looked outside the stall and found that there were already many people surrounding the street. They were curiously pointing at her and discussing something, which made her blush slightly. The Campbell family had always been arrogant and did not care about what others thought. However, she was a girl, after all. At least, she still cared about it. All right, Watson, I agree to your request. If you can fix my bracelet, I will let go of the matter. If you can't do it, then I'll still burn this place down. As she spoke, a ball of high-temperature flame rose from Lily's hand, causing the jewelry shop owner to tremble subconsciously. Boss, to complete the repair, I'll take another bracelet from you. You won't mind, right? Quote, no, I don't mind at all. The shop owner hurriedly nodded. Even if Watson took 10 bracelets, he would be willing to do it if the young man could help him. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Watson did not even look at the bracelet. He picked up an ordinary bracelet and placed it with Lily's broken bracelet, activating the fusion system. System fusion, activate. Congratulations, Master, for successfully fusing a bronze tier bracelet. The bracelet is from a silver tier ancient relic. Silver tier accessory. A bracelet from an ancient relic. Abilities. Silver shield, able to resist attacks from silver tier professionals. Illumination, able to emit light at night and in dark conditions, automatically illuminating it. Magic amplification, able to increase the power of spells by 30%. Additional abilities. Ruin Guardian Summon, calls forth an ancient Ruin Guardian with the combat power of a silver tier elite. It can only be summoned once per day. The fused bracelet appeared in Watson's hand with a blinding light. The bracelet was gray and was broken into pieces. It had transformed. It was glowing with a silver luster. There were mysterious magic symbols carved on it, constantly rotating. It looked extraordinary. Watson, you've repaired the bracelet. What kind of magic is that? Lily let go of the owner's right hand and looked at the bracelet in Watson's hand in surprise. She subconsciously took a few steps closer. The owner was also very surprised by Watson's action. After tidying his clothes, he pretended to be calm and said, "Ladies, that bracelet was originally like that, but because of its age and some improper operation, it seemed like you had broken it. Look, now that that young man has repaired that bracelet, the effect is so powerful. That is a well-deserved gold tier accessory. Why would I sell you a fake one?" Quote, Lily looked confused. She did not expect that the bracelet was really a gold tier accessory. She thought that the shop owner was trying to trick her with a fake one. Did she break it by mishandling it? Sorry, that is a silver tier bracelet. Though the effect was not weaker than a regular silver tier bracelet, Watson thought to himself. The shop owner looked embarrassed. He said, "The young man is right. It is a peak silver tier accessory, but its effect is not inferior to a gold tier one. As the owner of the jewelry shop, I have operated the accessory for more than 10 years. Occasionally, I would make a mistake. Although I've made a mistake in judging its grade, I know its ability very well. That accessory is engraved with a fire elemental spell. It can release a gold tier spell that can shoot fireballs continuously. No, there's nothing like that on that bracelet. There's only a spell called the Summoning of the Ruin Guards. Watson dismantled the bracelet again and put it on his arm. With a light shake, the bracelet immediately emitted a dazzling light. Then, in the empty space in front of Watson, the rocks on the ground rose with a dull cracking sound. Gradually, they converged into a rock structure. It was a guard in armor and holding a long spear. He exuded a powerful aura. You're wrong twice in a row. You don't know the grade, and you also don't know the function. Are you really the owner of that bracelet? Did you steal it from somewhere? Lily could not help but question the jewelry store owner. What do you mean I stole it? How could I steal something when I'm doing legal business? The owner defended himself with an aggrieved look on his face. It's bizarre. I got someone to age the bracelet and engrave the spell for exploding fireballs. That bracelet will be damaged if it's lucky enough to explode once or twice. But why has the magic in it changed? Because I only said that it would be repaired. I did not say that it would be restored to its original appearance. Watson took the bracelet off his arm and smiled. Boss, you seem to have said something that you should not have said. Oh, no. The shop owner also reacted, and his expression changed. He saw that Lily had already arrived in front of him. With a livid expression, she raised her burning fist and punched his nose. You lied to me, you d*mn liar. Go to hell. With a punch, the shop owner was sent flying backward and hit the wall. Then he collapsed on the ground. There was a burnt fist mark on his face, and his nose was crooked. Phew. Lily blew her fist and looked like she had vented her anger. Miss Lily, that bracelet is your reward. Watson handed the bracelet to Lily. He walked to the shop owner and put down a bag of money. I want to buy a hairpin from you. I'll leave the money here. Standing up, Watson did not look at the shop owner. He turned around and walked out. Nightingale, let's go. Yes, young Master Watson. Nightingale put the hairpin on her head and looked at the shop owner lying on the ground, covering his nose and wailing. She shook her head and followed Watson out of the shop. Only Charlotte and Lily were left. They looked at each other and followed him. Watson, wait for us. Lily put the bracelet on her wrist and chased after Watson. Can I ask you a question? Why are you willing to spend 100 gold coins to buy a crude hairpin even though you know the owner of that shop is a black-hearted businessman? Lily was not the only one who did not understand. Even Charlotte did not understand it. It was utterly meaningless to give money to such an evil businessman. With that money, one could buy hundreds of similar counterfeit products. The two girls felt that Watson's actions were a little silly. I brought Nightingale here to shop. If Nightingale likes something, I'll buy it regardless of whether it's valuable or not. She likes it. Nightingale subconsciously touched the hairpin on the top of her head. Her face was red, but her eyes were soft with sweetness. You liked it, so it's valuable. It's so philosophical. Lily and Charlotte murmured to themselves, and there was something different in their eyes. They did not expect Watson to say that. After listening to it, they could not find anything to refute. Instead, they thought even highly of Watson. The value of things was one thing for girls, but more importantly, it was about the person who paid for them. For such words, Watson was either a good person who treated everyone kindly or liked his handmaiden. Initially, Charlotte and Lily thought that Watson was a cold and arrogant genius. That was because while they were in the Royal Academy, Watson had only taken the test and did not care about anyone else. Otherwise, he would have recognized them. It seemed like Watson might be a little different from what they had imagined. They were interested in Watson because Antonio had shown interest in that young man. Looks like everything has been settled. Is there anything else? If not, you can leave, Watson said when he realized that Charlotte and Lily were still following him. Watson, I have a request. Later, Lily and I are going to buy some items for school. I wonder if you can come with us? Charlotte asked with a twinkle in her eyes. As soon as she finished her sentence, Lily nodded. That's right, Watson. It looks like you can repair the bracelet and even change its quality. Even the strongest forger of the Campbell family would find it difficult to do such a thing. Your understanding of magical items should be deeper than all of us combined. With you around, we won't be afraid of buying fake goods. Lily, you're an idiot. With Watson around, we won't be afraid even if we buy fake goods. Watson can turn it into something better than the real thing, right? Charlotte, what you said makes sense. But can you stop calling me an idiot? I'm not an idiot. While the two women were bickering, Watson took a deep breath. He felt that the chattering of the two women was quite annoying. Furthermore, Nightingale's happy expression became unsightly again. That could not go on. Repairing the bracelet is very energy-consuming for me. It's basically impossible for me to do it again. Watson interrupted the two women, causing disappointment to appear in their eyes. Then he changed the topic. Although I can't make weapons for you, I know where to find good weapons. Where to find good weapons? You'll know when you come with me. Watson led the girls to a blacksmith shop owned by the Severed Fingers gang. The two girls might not leave, but since that was the case, he would satisfy their requirements and then send them away. As for the way to satisfy their requirements, of course, he would make the two girls pay for it. Look, that is where I want to bring you. The armor and weapons here are all gold tier, and there are many of them at the peak of gold tier. The quality is excellent. Watson pointed at swords, spears, shields, and other weapons hanging on the walls. He introduced them casually. The quality of the weapons here is different from the ones in the previous shop, indeed. Just looking at them makes me feel a chill. Lily stood under the sword hanging on the wall and could not help but shiver. She seemed to be worried that the longsword would fall at any moment. Watson, Lily and I are both mages. Most of the items sold here seem to be tools for warriors. Do you have any magical staff that are suitable for us? Charlotte looked around and asked with a frown. Those weapons were indeed excellent, but they were not suitable for her. Would a mage like her, how could he carry a longsword and engage in close combat with others? Miss, you may not know that, but the weapons here are enchanted weapons, and the materials used to make them are quite special. I wonder if you have heard of arcane mithril? The materials used to make those weapons are arcane gold, which is higher than arcane mithril. The transmission speed is probably faster than ordinary staff, and they can also be used as close combat weapons. They are much more powerful than mere magical staff. At that moment, the boss from the blacksmith shop walked toward them. His upper body was naked and covered in sweat. When he saw Watson, a hint of respect flashed in the bald man's eyes, and even though the way he looked at Charlotte and the other girls became kinder, he did not get angry, even when Charlotte questioned him. Boss, we have been fooled by others before. In my opinion, shopkeepers are sweet talkers, and no one can believe what you say. What's the use of creating a sword that is more conductive than a magic staff? It's better to create a magical staff, Lily said. The bald boss still looked amiable, but the corners of his mouth twitched. He was about to start explaining. At that moment, the same questioning voice came from inside the blacksmith shop. Casey, what's the use of a longsword that's more conductive than a magic staff? It's not easy for you to pass the Royal Academy's Mage Department's assessment. Why don't you just buy a magical staff? If you buy a longsword, people will think that you're a warrior, and you would need to spend 10,000 gold coins for it. If father finds out about this, it'll be terrible. Quote, Lana, you don't understand. How can a magical staff be compared to a sword? Furthermore, the design of that sword is very exquisite. In this world, some people can use magic and cultivate combat auras. That kind of person is called a genius. Should I hold a magical staff in one hand and a longsword in the other when fighting? Let's not talk about that. This platinum tier sword is worth 10,000 gold coins. Perhaps father won't blame me for this. Instead, maybe he'll praise me for being smart. A man and a woman dressed in gorgeous clothes walked out of the blacksmith's shop as they spoke. The man had a smug look on his face. He was holding a sky-blue longsword in his bandaged hand. Two illusory water dragons crossed each other on the blade of the sword. They appeared and disappeared at times. The hilt of the sword was inlaid with 7 huge blue gemstones. Even though the distance was very far, one could still feel a stream of water vapor from the sword's blade. The girl was in the blacksmith shop, but she was still holding an umbrella. Her eyes were filled with helplessness as she looked at the man beside her. Casey, Lana? Watson saw the two of them and greeted them in surprise. He did not know what had happened, but he knew then. He did not expect Marcus to tell him that only 10 platinum weapons had been sold. Casey was so lucky to have gotten one of them. If he remembered correctly, the sword in Casey's hand was called Water Dragon Sky Sword. It was a platinum tier weapon of the water element. It had the same effect as the fake Poseidon trident. A full power slash could release a water tornado that connected the sky and the earth. Perhaps Marcus wanted a useless young master like Casey to use the strength of his weapon to shine in the exhibition competition and use the contrast to show off his weapon. While Watson was thinking, Casey and Lana also saw him. Lana's eyes lit up, and she came to Watson's side in surprise. She said, "Watson, what a coincidence. I didn't expect Sister Nightingale to be here as well." Casey's face was bitter. The hand holding the platinum tier weapon continued to tremble, and the pride on his face had disappeared. "DMN it. Why did I have to meet this guy again? And he came with a maid?" It was fine if he only saw Watson, but seeing Nightingale was really unbearable. The familiar face made him recall the painful experience in the floating city, and his body felt a dull pain. "Watson, aren't those two from the Ptolemy family of the floating city, Casey and Lana? I heard that they have a good relationship with my brother, Augustus." "Do you know them?" Lily asked Watson. "I know them, and I'm also very familiar with them." The corner of Watson's mouth curled upward. "Isn't that right, young Master Casey?" "Watson, I didn't expect you to buy weapons here. I thought someone with your ability wouldn't need a weapon. This sword is a platinum tier weapon that I had just spent 10,000 gold coins on. It must be fate that we met. I'll give this weapon to you." Watson's words made Casey's body quiver even more. Even his voice trembled. He quickly handed the Water Dragon Sky Sword to Watson and forced an ugly smile on her face. "Give away a platinum tier weapon? What does Casey mean? Is his brain damaged?" Charlotte and Lily, who did not know about the matter between Watson and Casey, were dumbfounded when they saw Casey's action. Chapter 402. A growing team. "Perhaps the weapon is not real platinum?" Charlotte turned the handle of the parasol, her eyes shining. That was the only explanation that could explain why Casey would give away the platinum weapon in his hand. After all, there were less than 10 platinum tier weapons in the entire Holy Dragon Kingdom. It was very puzzling that a platinum tier weapon would suddenly appear there. In addition, Charlotte had never heard of such a platinum weapon. The probability of forgery was very high. "Who are you? Don't talk nonsense. That sword is platinum tier. I spent 10,000 gold coins to buy it. If you don't understand it, then don't talk nonsense. If you don't believe me, I'll use it to demonstrate its power. You'll see whether it's a platinum tier weapon or not." Charlotte did not deliberately lower her voice, causing many people to hear her words, and Casey was one of them. He was very dissatisfied with Charlotte's words. He was disgruntled because he had said he would give the sword to Watson. If Watson thought he was using a fake platinum longsword to deceive him, he shuddered to think what would happen. In his anxiety, Casey took the longsword and walked out of the weapons store. Standing on the street in front of the weapons store, Casey held the Water Dragon Sky Sword in his hand and released the power that came with the blade toward the sky. "Let it bloom, double water tornadoes." The clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. A heavy downpour came in an instant. The air was also filled with dense water vapor. When the vapor and the water droplets in the sky gathered, they turned into 2 water tornadoes that connected the sky and the earth. They circled Casey's body, making him look like the god of water. Along with the water tornadoes, there was also a fierce wind. Many shops and stalls on both sides of the street were blown into disorder by the fierce wind. As for the street near Casey, the ground was damaged by the strong impact of the water pillar, and cracks spread in all directions. In just a few short seconds, large pits had appeared in the ground. "Who is that? He's displaying such a powerful move on the street? His battle technique must be at platinum tier." A passerby covered his head with his hand to prevent the strong wind and rainstorm in the sky from sweeping his body as he exclaimed in surprise. "I know that person. His name is Casey. He is the Ptolemy family's young master who came to the capital from the floating city. Rumor has it that his strength is quite weak. He even passed the Royal Academy's assessment by relying on his connections. Someone in my family is an assessment teacher at the Royal Academy, so I've heard about that. However, it seems that his strength is quite strong. Perhaps the rumor is false?" Someone else said. "That's not right. That Casey did not release that combat technique. There is not the slightest bit of combat aura fluctuation in his body. Instead, The longsword in his hand exudes a powerful energy. Was it the sword? If that's the case, then that sword must be very powerful. What level of weapon could release such a powerful battle technique? After all, it was the capital. There was no lack of silver and even gold-tier elites on the streets. After careful identification, they knew that Casey had used that move entirely with the long sword in his hand. After the chaos due to the sudden appearance of a platinum-tier battle technique, Casey put down the sword in satisfaction and withdrew the 2 water tornadoes. He wiped his non-existent sweat and turned around to return to the blacksmith's shop. He revealed a proud smile. Did you see that? Do you still think that this is now a platinum-tier weapon? Everyone was somewhat dumbfounded. On the one hand, they did not expect Casey to dare release such a powerful force into the streets. On the other hand, they also did not expect that that sword was a platinum-tier weapon. It really is a platinum-tier weapon. It has been decades since a new platinum-tier weapon appeared in the kingdom. I wonder which master blacksmith forged that weapon. Its power does not seem to be inferior to some of the old platinum-tier items in the kingdom. Charlotte spun her parasol as she muttered to herself. Her eyes were burning with passion. If she had entered that shop, she would not have thought much of it. However, she felt that the weapons hanging on the walls were slightly better than those in other shops, but her impression of that place had changed entirely. A platinum-tier weapon meant that the craftsmanship of that shop had to be outstanding. No, it was more than that. Other than the Campbell family, there were only a few master craftsmen in the capital. They often took years or even decades to forge a platinum-tier item. Once a platinum-tier item was forged, they would turn around and forge a gold-tier item. In terms of ability and grade, they far surpassed those craftsmen who had never forged a platinum-tier item. That was also why the Campbell family and those master craftsmen were highly respected in the kingdom. Just as she was thinking about that, a few elites walked into the shop. They were the ones who knew that a weapon aided Casey's display of strength. Those people immediately looked at the shop owner and said, "Boss, is there any other similar weapon to the one in that young master's hand? I want one. I'm willing to pay 10,000 gold coins. You want to buy a weapon of that level for 10,000 gold coins? Aren't you a little naive? I'll pay 30,000 gold coins. If it is needed, I can increase it again." The elites chased after the shop owner and asked with eager eyes. Facing their words, the shop owner only smiled. "I'm sorry, everyone, we only have one of those in our shop for the time being. After all, that is a platinum-tier weapon. If you want it, you'd have to wait for a while. Our forger might be able to forge a second platinum weapon. Before that, you might as well take a look at the other weapons in my shop. Even though they are only some peak gold-tier items, the effects won't disappoint you." The boss said there was no second water dragon sky sword, so those elites looked disappointed. However, when they saw the longswords hanging on the surrounding walls, their expressions changed from disappointment to shock and then to eagerness. "Boss, how much are those weapons hanging on your wall?" 1,000 gold coins per sword. No bargaining. Quote, "Give me one." One of the experts directly took out 1,000 gold coins and bought a golden longsword of good quality from the wall. After buying it, he pulled out the longsword that was hanging around his waist. Then, he used the golden longsword that he had just purchased and slashed at the original sword. The thin sword he had been using broke with a muffled sound, and there was not even a scratch on the gold-tier longsword. That scene made the expert who had bought the golden longsword reveal an expression of joy. "As I thought, that sword could be so hard. It must have been filled with ores similar to obsidian gold. My original weapon was also gold tier, but it was as fragile as paper compared to that sword. Besides obsidian gold, that sword must have been mixed with arcane gold. I feel that just holding that sword has increased the speed of my warrior power circulation. Not only can that sword transmit warrior power, but it can also transmit magic. It is also suitable for mages. I dare say that if I use that sword to cast the same magic, its power will be doubled." "That's right, sir. It seems that you know what you're talking about." The shop owner nodded his head in approval. At that moment, another person who came in with that elite could not help but take out a purse containing 2,000 gold coins and slam it on the table. "Boss, give me 2 of those blades. I heard that the weapons in that shop are excellent. They actually sell platinum tier items. Even gold tier weapons are above the same level. Are you serious? I want to go in and have a good look." The two elites left with 3 gold-tier longswords in their hands, satisfied. Not long after, more than 10 people walked in and bought dozens of gold-tier longswords from the shop. In just a short time, the number of longswords hanging on the shop's walls had been reduced by half. It seems that the business of that shop is better than I expected. Miss Charlotte, Miss Lily, are you still buying or not? If you don't want to buy, I think the weapons here will be sold out, Watson said. Charlotte snapped back to her senses. When she saw that fewer than half of the weapons were left on the walls, she became a little anxious. The quality of the weapons here is so good, of course, I want to buy them, but I haven't chosen them carefully. Lily, who looked more anxious than she was, pointed at the weapons on the walls and said, I want that, that and that. Forget it, boss. Give me 3 sets of longswords, shields, and armor each. Quote, after pointing at the things she wanted, Lily turned to look at her good friend, Charlotte. I just checked carefully and found that the weapons here are almost the same. They should be made according to a template. The quality won't change much. Buy those high-quality weapons first. As for the styles, we can pick them when we get home. Lily, you have a point. Boss, give me 5 sets of each weapon in your shop. Okay. Ladies, the total number of weapons and armor you need is 80 items. The total value is 80,000 gold coins. Please fill in the address of your house. Later, our blacksmith shop will send someone to deliver them to your house. The shopkeeper's lips curled up into a wide smile. There were only about 100 weapons on display in his shop. At that moment, Lily and Cassie had already taken over more than half of them. Together with the platinum tier items that they had sold to the others and Cassie previously, the shop's income would be 100,000 gold coins in a short while. Anyone would be excited. We did not bring that much money when we went out. That is a check from the Holy Dragon Bank in the Royal City. We can withdraw a maximum of 100,000 gold coins. We will use 80,000 gold coins to pay for it, and we will save the remaining 20,000. If there are platinum tier weapons next time, you have to inform us first. Oh, right, our addresses are the Campbell and the Rowland family, respectively. Quote, Lily took out a check from her pocket and handed it to the shop owner. After checking the words on the check carefully, the shop owner showed a satisfied look. Please rest assured, ladies. We will inform you as soon as we have good products for our wealthy and generous customers. While Charlotte and Lily discussed the purchase of weapons with the shop owner, Casey approached Watson carefully and handed the Water Dragon Sky Sword to Watson with both hands. Watson, I've shown you the sword. Take it. Young Master Casey, are you trying to please me? With our relationship, you don't have to be so polite to me. Seeing Casey's cautious expression, Watson suppressed the urge to laugh. Watson, I'm not trying to please you. I'm trying to treat you as a friend, Casey explained awkwardly. And I'm not giving you that weapon for free. I have a request. So, you have a purpose. I knew you would not be so kind. What are you up to this time? Before Watson could speak, Nightingale glared at Casey as she scolded him. Casey shrank back in fear and covered his face with the platinum tier item in his hand. He looked like he was afraid of getting beaten up. Miss Nightingale, I don't have any wicked ideas. I just want Watson to take me as his underling so that I can follow him. Is that not too much to ask? Quote, you want me to make you my underling? Watson had a strange look on his face as if he did not expect Casey to say such a thing. Previously, he had made Casey so miserable, and then he had used the man's reputation to make him take the blame. Under such circumstances, it was already good enough that Casey did not hate him. Why would Casey want to become his subordinate? Did he want to get close to him and then wait for an opportunity to take revenge? Yes, Watson, I sincerely want to become your subordinate. Casey nodded. If one were to ask him how he felt about Watson, it would definitely be hatred. If there were a chance, he would have wanted to strangle Watson to death, but he knew that he could not do it. Initially, when he reached the royal city, he had been with Augustus because he wanted the man to take care of him. He hoped that he would no longer experience what he had in the floating city. However, he did not expect Augustus to be Watson's match. He feared Watson. The best way to overcome his fear was not to defeat it but to accept it. If he could not beat him, he might as well join him. Casey, I don't know what you are thinking. Besides, you've done so many wicked things. What right do you have to be young Master Watson's subordinate? Nightingale looked disgusted. If it were not for fear of antagonizing the Ptolemy family, she would have already killed Casey. Plus, she would go crazy if she had to see Casey wandering in front of her every day. Miss Nightingale, I've already regretted what I've done. I know that I've made many mistakes in the past, but now I want to correct myself. Will you forgive me? What can I do to get you to forgive me? Do you want me to kneel and apologize to you before you're willing to let me go? If that's the case, I'll kneel now. As Casey spoke, he was about to kneel with the platinum tier longsword in his hands. At that moment, Watson waved his hand, and a gentle breeze blew past, dragging Casey's knees. Young Master Casey, there's no need for that, and I don't want to deprive a person of the right to reform. However, I can't take you as my subordinate for now. Perhaps I'll observe you first. I'll give you some missions from time to time. If you can accomplish them well, I might consider letting you become my subordinate. Really? Watson, thank you. You're such a good person. Casey shed tears of excitement, a look of relief on his face. Ever since he knew that Watson was at the Royal City and the Royal Academy just like him, he had been afraid that he would have nightmares every night. Watson's words meant that he no longer cared about what happened in the floating city. At least Casey could get some good night's sleep. Lana looked helpless when she saw Casey's useless appearance. Brother Casey, we're outside now. Is it really okay for you to cry in front of so many people? I'm sorry, everyone. I've lost my composure. I've made a fool of myself. Casey reacted and hurriedly wiped the tears off his face. Charlotte's gaze was strange as she looked back and forth between Casey and Watson. Watson, I had wanted to ask you just now. What is the relationship between you and that young master from the Ptolemy family? Why did he give you a platinum tier item when he saw you? Why did he say something about following you? As I've said just now, I am very familiar with young Master Casey. We are friends who have lived through life and death. Watson once saved my life, so I respect him very much. Watson's enemy is my enemy. Watson's orders are missions that I must complete. Without waiting for Watson to finish speaking, Casey beat his chest and responded firmly. Watson glanced at him and did not refute him. He did not kill Casey previously, so it was equivalent to letting go of him. Therefore, it was not nonsense for Casey to say that he had saved him. Lily said, forget it. No matter your relationship, now that the weapons are bought, where are we going next? Watson, the things we bought today should be enough for me to use in the Royal Academy for the next few years. Shall I treat you to a meal later? That's a good suggestion. We were fated to meet today. Why don't we eat together? I know a few good restaurants in the Royal City. Miss Lily won't mind us tagging along, right? Lana blinked her long white eyelashes. She looked eager. You're my brother's good friends. Of course, I'll bring you guys for dinner. Let's go together. Lily waved her hand generously. They quickly decided to go to the Holy Dragon Tavern. Everyone had different expressions of joy on their faces. Only one person did not look happy, and that was Nightingale. It's not easy to be alone with Watson for one day. Why does it feel like the group has grown so much? Nightingale clutched the corner of her clothes and bit her lip. She wanted to be alone with Watson, but she did not know how to refuse under such circumstances. Furthermore, she was worried that the group would continue to grow. Chapter 403. Are there any phoenix eggs? At the third floor of Grey Manor's 8th floor courtyard, Veronica stood in front of a huge mirror, using her hands to tie up her hair. She showed off her impressive figure in front of the mirror. Her fair skin and amazing breasts were so charming. In addition, she was wearing light makeup and looked lovely. Any man would go crazy when they saw her. I still look outstanding today. Her lips moved slightly and let out moist air. Veronica took a few strands of hair that fell to her mouth and put them in her mouth. Her expression became more and more attractive. As she spoke, she opened her hands, and the two maids behind her put on a white dress on Veronica. The dress was very simple, similar to what girls would wear. While putting on the dress, the two maids carefully avoided the 10 rings on Veronica's finger. However, when they inadvertently glanced at the 10 rings, their eyes were full of envy. After putting on the white dress, Veronica put a green hair clip on her hair and walked around the mirror like a beautiful butterfly. Very good. That dress makes me look 10 years younger. Maybe the Black Emperor would like that style. Veronica's careful dressing had only one purpose, which was to leave the courtyard and meet with Watson outside. It was just a one-sided meeting with Watson. She had lived in the slums of the royal city since she was young. She knew that a woman's best asset was not her ability but her beauty and youth. With those two weapons, she began to rely on the Severed Fingers gang to climb the ranks of the higher-ups. Gradually, she climbed up to the position of leader of the Severed Fingers gang. At that point, she no longer needed to rely on anyone, nor did she need to sell her body. Of course, until Watson's appearance. Unlike before, Veronica only wanted to climb up the ranks, so she used the men obsessed with her beauty. However, at that time, she was really tempted. She was already a diamond-tier elite and the disciple of two famous people in the kingdom at such a young age. She was powerful, and she was wise. If it were not because she was too young, such a man would be the most perfect person in the world. If I can make that Black Emperor fall in love with me or be interested in me, then I can obtain more resources within the Severed Fingers gang and stand on top of a mountain that I could not see before. Even though she was tempted, Veronica's nature had not changed. She used her beauty to seduce all the men who could be seduced. Because Watson was so outstanding, there was a high chance that he would not like a person like her, so there was no need for her to make Watson fall in love with her. She did not need to be Watson's lover. As long as she was his lover, she should be able to do such a thing. Furthermore, the other party was a young boy who did not seem to have much experience in that area. According to the reports from my subordinates, the Black Emperor is currently shopping with someone. It's time for me to go out. After making up her mind, Veronica left her residence in the Sky Courtyard. She had only walked out a few steps when she heard a familiar complaint. That is the first time I've worn that kind of clothing since I was born. It's really awkward, but since it's the Black Emperor's request, I can only accept it. Looking up, Veronica found that the person complaining was Aemon. At that moment, Aemon was wearing a black and white uniform. The uniform's chest was engraved with the emblem of the Holy Dragon Kingdom, and there were gold tassels hanging on the left and right sides of his shoulders. It seemed that that was the uniform of a certain academy. Beside Aemon, there was a burly man who was comforting him. Aemon, you look excellent in that school uniform. Believe me, when you enter the Royal Academy with that appearance, you will be able to charm many noble girls. The Black Emperor wanted you to find outstanding talents. I think that you might as well trick a few noble ladies and get them. That way, the Black Emperor's mission will be completed. If not for my appearance and my age, I would also like to enter the academy with you and spend every day with the Black Emperor. The one who consoled him was Basher. At that moment, he was scratching his head with an envious face. As he was speaking, he noticed Veronica, who was approaching him. Veronica, why are you dressed like that? You're already in your 20s, and you're dressed like a teenage girl. Also, who are you going to see dressed like that? Basher, you idiot. It doesn't matter to you who I go to see dressed like that. Be careful. If you say something like that again, I'll tear your mouth apart. Veronica, you're still the same. You swear the moment you open your mouth. Is there a teenager like you? Basher curled his lips. Hey, guys, why do you have to quarrel every time you meet? Aemon raised his hands weakly. Basher and Veronica seemed to have had an indescribable relationship from the past. As for the specifics, he was not a nosy person, so he had not inquired about it. Ask that crazy woman, why do you have to quarrel with me every time you see me? You look like you don't like me. Back then, that crazy woman only became one of the leaders of the Severed Fingers because of my recommendation. Otherwise, she would still be an ordinary member now. Bullshit. I was the one who traded my body for my current status. What does it have to do with you? You were only a new Severed Fingers gang leader at the time. You did not have any say at all. Veronica, why are you so angry? Or are you deliberately picking a fight? Picking a fight? You don't deserve it. I'm too lazy to talk to you. I'm going to meet the Black Emperor. Get out of my way. My time is very precious. Veronica, so you're dressed like that to meet young Master Watson? You're heading there too? Hearing Veronica's words, Basher was a little surprised at first, but then he showed a strange expression. Veronica keenly sensed the meaning in Basher's words and frowned. What do you mean me too? Basher, don't tell me you're going to see the Black Emperor? Of course. Aemon just passed the Royal Academy's assessment according to the Black Emperor's instructions and even bought the school uniform. We're on our way to tell him that news. On the other hand, you don't seem to have anything to report to the Black Emperor. You're not dressed like that to seduce the Black Emperor, are you? It's none of your business. Even though Veronica was very thick-skinned, she could not help but blush. That made Basher's expression even more strange. Veronica, I'd advise you to save your breath. The Black Emperor doesn't like you. As far as I know, the Black Emperor brought a beautiful woman with him when he went out today, and it's said that he has a good relationship with Lady Swordmistress. How do you know if you don't try? Anyway, I have decided to see the Black Emperor later. Don't hinder me. If you want to see the Black Emperor, wait for me to finish. In return, I can pay you 10 million gold coins. You want us to back down with just 10 million gold coins? You are underestimating us. We won't agree to 100 million gold coins, let alone 10 million gold coins. While Veronica and Basher were bickering, another man's voice suddenly echoed not far away from them. I did not expect the both of you to be here and even plan on meeting the Black Emperor. Why don't you join us later? Quote, Veronica and Eamon turned their heads together and saw Klein walking over with his cane. He took off the black top hat on his head and bowed to them. It seemed like he deliberately wore a different suit, making him appear very rich. His hair had been carefully groomed, and every strand of hair stuck to his scalp obediently. Klein, why are you here? After Klein, another person walked forward. It was Count Grey, who was also wearing a suit that was different from his usual clothes, and there was a bright red ribbon pinned to his chest. Klein smiled and said, It looks like everyone is here. I thought that I was the only one who wanted to meet the Black Emperor. I did not expect everyone to have the same thoughts as me. With a chuckle, Marcus walked out from the shadows of the forest. He was in a starlight tier feather armor that shimmered with divine light, reflecting a magnificent color under the sunlight. I'm different from you people with ulterior motives. I want to meet the Black Emperor to ask about how to raise that angelic unicorn. Then, they heard Elven. She descended from the sky on the angelic unicorn and quickly landed on the ground. After her, another one of their fellow higher-ups appeared. In a short period, 10 Severed Fingers gang leaders had gathered there. They looked at each other with a slightly awkward expression. They had the same goal. They did not expect to bump into each other there. It was indeed a bit of a coincidence. Why are you guys looking for the Black Emperor for no reason at all? Veronica was the first to speak. As soon as she finished speaking, Elvin glanced at her. Us? Aren't you going to see the Black Emperor as well? Their purpose for going to see Watson was very simple. They wanted to curry favor with their boss, especially after Marcus received the reward from the temporary assessment. He had gotten a Starlight tier item for that. If they made Watson happy, he might give them a few Starlight tier weapons. Even if they did not get any weapons, they were willing to raise their strength to Diamond tier. Klein said, Everyone, let's not quarrel. Since everyone is going to see the Black Emperor, it's obviously not feasible to go one by one. Why don't we all go together? I have a suggestion. Will you listen to it? Klein interrupted Elvin and Veronica, who were still arguing. I wonder what your suggestion is. My suggestion is like that. Waving his hand, he gestured for all his fellow higher-ups to gather in front of him. Klein lowered his voice and recounted the idea he had. As soon as his voice fell, everyone nodded, and a glint appeared in their eyes. That's right, Klein. We'll do as you say. Your plan is very fair. In the end, it will depend on our abilities to win the Black Emperor's favor. After the higher-ups decided to meet Watson, Watson was on the other end. This is the Red Dragon area of the Holy Dragon Tavern. It's indeed more upscale than other places. I've only been here a few times with my mother since I was young. As Lily sat in a private room in the Red Dragon area, she sighed when she looked at the exquisite agate jewelry hanging from the tables and chairs and the gorgeous murals hanging on the walls. As an Archduke's family child, Lily was not qualified to enter the Red Dragon area for a meal. Even her brother, Augustus, could not be invited there alone. The last time he was able to enter the Red Dragon area, Augustus had used Casey and the other noble family members to do that. Coupled with his tough attitude, the people of the Holy Dragon Tavern had no choice but to let him pass. They were with Watson that day, so everyone went directly to the Red Dragon area. I am not qualified to enter the Red Dragon area either. Young Master Casey is obviously not qualified too. It seems like we have all been blessed by Watson, Charlotte said. After entering the Red Dragon area, Charlotte automatically put away the parasol on her head. She placed it beside the chair and looked at Watson with a strange look in her eyes. Charlotte's situation in the Saint Laurent family was similar to Lily's. Even though she was the child of the leading family, there was a genius above her who was even more outstanding than them. The genius of the Campbell family was Augustus, and the genius of the Saint Laurent family was Nia. Nia was even more terrifying due to her lack of feelings than the proud and domineering Augustus. She did not know who was stronger, Watson or Nia. Charlotte compared them in her heart. She felt that perhaps Nia was stronger. Watson, who was the sword saint San Antonio's disciple, had mastered combat aura and magic simultaneously. He had a more varied way of fighting and had the magical ability to repair bracelets. However, those were nothing in front of Nia. As a member of the Saint Laurent family, she knew that Nia had a huge secret. "Don't be so reserved. What do you want to eat? Let me treat everyone to a meal," Lily said as she took the menu. "Since I don't come to such places often, I'll just order some of the usual food, prawns in butter and a roast beef salad. I'll order those too for now." Lana's long white eyelashes moved as she spoke. Even though she was still holding an umbrella in the room, everyone had more or less heard about her illness, so no one paid attention to that. "Those two dishes are the signature dishes here. Miss Lana, you are being too modest by saying that you don't come here often." Lily laughed and looked at the others. "What about you guys? What would you like to eat?" For noblemen, ordering food at the dining hall was an important matter. There was a particular order that they had to follow. If it were not done correctly, it would be regarded as uneducated, and people would sneer at them. "I'll have a sour plum pudding and a pot of lemon black tea." The second one to speak was Charlotte. Lana had just ordered the dishes, so she ordered 2 desserts and a drink. "I'll have the kingdom's special soup as the main dish." After Charlotte, Lily spoke, followed by Kathy. Even Casey, who did not have a proper job, was not inferior to others in terms of eating. He said, "Grilled dragon liver." Soon, it was Watson's turn. Watson spread his hands and said, "I don't know much about food. I feel that the dishes you ordered are very delicious. Why don't you ask Nightingale?" Nightingale was not qualified to speak on such occasions as she was a maid, but since Watson had said so, the others could only look at Nightingale expectantly. Nightingale had been working in the border count's mansion all year round or carrying out orders. She had never participated in a formal aristocratic social dinner. Furthermore, that meal included too many people with high status. Under such circumstances, she had no idea how to order a dish that matched her status. Nightingale had no choice but to search through the seemingly high-tier dishes she had eaten in her mind. Soon, she had an answer. "I'll just order a plate of phoenix eggs." The best food she had ever eaten must have been the pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs that Watson had given her. After that, the phoenix eggs upgraded her taste buds as well. "Phoenix eggs, Miss Nightingale, are you serious?" Everyone, except for Watson, had an incredulous look on their faces. First of all, the phoenix was a legendary mythical beast. A magical beast of that level was at least platinum tier or even diamond tier. Even though the phoenix was powerful, it was still very rare in the world. Who could cook with a phoenix egg? Perhaps even King Landhar III did not have such good taste. They felt that Nightingale must not know much about the high-class dishes in the Holy Dragon Tavern, so she had ordered such a ridiculous dish. As she sensed the gazes of the people around her, Nightingale also felt that the dish she mentioned might not be suitable. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "It's true that creatures like the phoenixes are very rare. Perhaps there aren't any phoenix eggs here. Let's change that to a piece of platinum tier magical beast meat." Platinum tier magical beast meat? Even though Casey could not bear to hear it, he said, "Miss Nightingale, even though I don't know what you usually eat, the Holy Dragon Tavern is not that high tier. There's no platinum tier magical beast meat here. At most, there's only gold tier magical beast meat. Even if it's a gold tier magical beast, a piece of that meat will be costly." That maid did not seem to know anything at all, only ordering randomly. It was hard to imagine why Watson would let her order. People said that Watson was a nobleman from the border. Perhaps the people at the border were not so strict in their education of nobleman etiquette. Charlotte saw the contempt in Nightingale's eyes. Even if she admired Watson in terms of strength, he was far inferior to someone like her, who came from an archduke's family, in terms of etiquette and style as a nobleman. "Why is there no platinum tier magical beast meat here?" What about the sun fruit and the moon fruit? Do they have those? Nightingale frowned. Those were common ingredients on Mount Creation, and the royal city was the most prosperous place in the kingdom. If they did not have those in high-class taverns, what right did they have to be called high-class? Miss Nightingale, perhaps I'll order the next dish for you. Lily sighed. She had never heard of the sun and moon gems. Even though the dishes Nightingale mentioned were ridiculous, at least they existed. The sun and moon gems were probably made-up names. Suddenly, the door to the room opened, and a person walked in with red wine in his hands. Miss, you have good taste. Even though the Holy Dragon Tavern doesn't have the sun and moon gems, we have wine made from those two fruits. Chapter 404. A Real Nobleman. There were 2 bottles of red wine in the hands of the person who entered the room. One was a silver-white bottle that was slightly curved in the shape of the moon. The other bottle was golden. The bottle was round in shape. The 2 bottles of red wine were not only unique in their design, but the clear, translucent, and slightly shiny wine itself also significantly increased one's appetite. Just looking at the wine, Casey swallowed his saliva. Sun gem? Moon gem? What is that thing? I've eaten in the Holy Dragon Tavern many times before, but I've never heard of those 2 things, let alone wine made with those 2 fruits. They're not on the menu either. Lily repeatedly checked the menu to make sure that she was not mistaken. She thought that Nightingale had simply made up those things. That made her laugh inwardly at Nightingale's lack of knowledge. She had to make up something to order a dish. Perhaps she was the one who did not understand, right? Miss, you may not know that, but the sun and moon wine are new, so they are not recorded on the menu. As for the sun and moon gems, they are a kind of strange fruit that grows in the forest of eternity in the south. It is said that those fruits can only grow on the world tree, and they need to be irrigated by the spring of life. It takes 1,000 years for them to bloom and bear fruit, so they are very rare. If you eat those fruits, you can directly become a gold-tier elite, and you can even awaken your light and dark combat aura. Even though the wine doesn't have such a powerful effect, it can still slightly improve a cultivator's tier. This wine is priced at 1,000 gold coins per bottle in our tavern. Although it's very expensive, there are still many people who have tasted it and come to buy it. The waiter holding the 2 bottles of red wine smiled and turned his eyes to Nightingale. Since that young lady can name the sun gem and the moon gem, it seems like she is a person who often tastes those fruits. With such knowledge, these 2 bottles of red wine are free for everyone to taste. Really? Everyone was relieved to hear the waiter's words, especially Lily. Her heart ached when she heard that the 2 bottles of wine cost 2,000 gold coins. Aside from the effect of the 2 bottles of wine, the quantity was not much. She and Charlotte could finish those 2 bottles easily. If everyone were allowed to eat to their heart's content, perhaps at least 1 bottle of wine per person, she would need to fork out tens of thousands of gold coins. She did not feel bad spending tens of thousands of gold coins to buy weapons and armor. However, she thought that it was too much for a meal. However, the waiter had said that the 2 bottles of red wine were free, so she was happy about that. Are those 2 bottles of wine really as magical as the legends say? They can increase a person's strength? Casey had a doubtful look on his face. His strength had been different from when he was in the floating city. He had already reached the silver tier. Although he was still trash compared to the other geniuses, his strength was much better than when he was barely at the iron tier. He had been able to increase his strength to such a level in a short month because he had consumed many potions that could increase a person's level. Furthermore, he had also done a lot of training with the potions. Other than the potions, he had also used some magical tools. However, he still barely met the minimum requirement to pass the Royal Academy's assessment. It was the same for Lana. She had not trained much, and she was only a silver-tier mage. That was all the result of consuming a large number of magical potions before the test. There were not many potions in the kingdom that could raise one's strength permanently. If there were, the price would be very precious. However, it was not difficult to find a potion that could significantly raise one's strength for a short period. Those potions would usually have some side effects, but Lana and Casey did not care about that. They only wanted to enter the Royal Academy. Even though the Royal Academy forbade any nobleman from passing the examination by bribery, there were policies and countermeasures. If the children of noble families wanted to enter the academy but were not capable enough, they would purchase a large number of potions to increase their strength forcefully. Compared to the convenience of graduating from the Royal Academy, spending some gold coins to purchase potions was not a loss at all. The potions that can increase one's strength are bitter and unpleasant to drink. This kind of wine is so mysterious. Perhaps it had some potions mixed in it? Casey pointed at the 2 bottles of wine in front of him. He knew about potions that could increase one's strength. Those potions were made purely from medicines without adding anything to their effects, so they were very unpleasant to drink. As for the sun gem and moon gem that the waiter mentioned, he had heard of them. They were supreme treasures from the Elven Kingdom. Those fruits were very valuable in the Elven Kingdom. Even the Elven royal family were hesitant to use them, let alone transport them to the Holy Dragon Kingdom, far in the continent's center, and even let them get made into wine. How extravagant was that? The wine must have been mixed with a potion that could increase one's strength and then sold under the name of the sun and the moon gems. The possibility of that was higher. As for whether those 2 kinds of wine were mixed with potions, after drinking a large number of potions that month, he only needed to taste 1 mouthful to be able to taste it. "Young master, if you don't believe me, you can taste that wine first." The waiter was not worried about Casey's doubts. It seemed that he had seen similar cases often. He poured a glass of wine and handed it to Casey. That was the sun wine, which gave people a warm illusion with its thin layer of white mist that had risen to the surface of the wine. It seemed to be steam left by the wine's high temperature. An even stronger fragrance spread through the wineglass. Casey swallowed his saliva again as he stared at the wineglass. He picked up the wineglass and drank it in 1 gulp. "I won't stand on ceremony then." Gulp. After drinking the glass of wine, Casey's eyes widened. He felt a milk-like texture slid down his throat. It was hard to imagine that the wine could have such a texture. Other than that, his throat was warm. The warm current flowed down his throat into his limbs and bones. The rich wine fragrance rushed straight to the top of his head, numbing every nerve in his body. He could feel that the wine had not been heated. The heat he felt was the heat of the alcohol itself and the heat of the sun. After drinking that glass of wine, Casey felt as if a ray of light had appeared in his body. That ray of light illuminated his body and made his combat aura, which had appeared after he took some potions, become much thicker. At the same time, a layer of light elemental combat aura's unique radiance appeared in his combat aura. "How is it, Casey? Is that wine really as magical as the waiter said? You're not talking, is it that bad? So bad that you can't speak?" Charlotte asked with concern. Casey took a deep breath and leaned back on the chair. His voice trembled as he shook his head. "No, that wine is not terrible. It's just too delicious. I can confirm that there is not any medicine mixed in to increase one's strength. There's also no smell of herbs. Instead, it's filled with a fruity and sunny taste. The sun wine is indeed worthy of its reputation. I don't know if it's made from sun gems, but just like what the waiter said, after drinking a cup, the combat aura in my body became stronger. It's very obvious. Are you serious? I'll try it too." Lily gestured for the waiter to pour a glass of sun wine for her. She downed it in 1 gulp. As a fire elemental cultivator, she was very resistant to hot wine. However, after drinking that, her entire face turned red, and she collapsed on the chair. Her breathing became rapid. "It's true. This wine can really raise one's strength. Pour me a glass too. I'll try the moon wine." Seeing that Casey and Lily were in such a state, Lana and Charlotte could not hold it in any longer. They each drank a glass of moon wine. It felt different from the usual wine. The moon wine had an ice-cold effect. It was refreshing to drink it. The 2 women's pores opened up, and they moaned comfortably, especially Lana. She had been suffering from sunlight sickness and was afraid of sunlight. She had to use an umbrella even when she was in the house. However, there was a layer of milky white light on her almost transparent skin. She subconsciously moved the umbrella to the side and exposed her face to the light. She did not feel uncomfortable at all. "It's a really good wine. That is the first time I've heard of such a wine in the world." Quote, "Let's not to mention the effect of the wine. Just the taste alone is enough to make people unable to stop." After tasting the wine, Casey and the others simply could not stop. They drank 1 glass after another until their sights blurred. Soon, the 2 bottles of wine were emptied. They licked their lips, still not satisfied. During that process, Watson and Nightingale also had a glass each. Watson took a sip and nodded in satisfaction. The concentration of that wine was about 1% of the typical sun and moon gem fruit juice, but it was mixed with other spices, so the taste was delicious. After Nightingale drank it, she clicked her tongue. She was a little dissatisfied. What kind of wine is this? It's too bland. Its effect is far from the real sun and moon gems, but it still tastes good. Nightingale's words caught the attention of Charlotte and the others. It seemed that Nightingale had eaten sun and moon gems, but they did not know whether it was true or not. Judging from what the waiter had said, the sun and moon gems were very precious, so Nightingale could be lying. After all, as the descendants of the famous archdukes in the royal city, they had never tasted them. Nightingale came from the border and was only a maid. How could she have the qualifications to taste such a fruit? Miss, you are competent. I can't believe that you know about the sun and moon gems and have tasted them personally. Yes, the liquor in our pub is prepared according to the ratio of 1% of those two fruits. Then, another man dressed in impressive clothes walked into the room. That man had a handlebar mustache that would tremble when he spoke. Everyone, including Watson, was stunned. Count Grey. Charlotte was the first to react and bowed to the man in front of him. Everyone knew Count Grey, though he did not look much like a count. Perhaps that was why the king wrote a plaque in the Holy Dragon Tavern. Count Grey was a person of low status but with great power. Many of the great noblemen in the kingdom had to be respectful when they saw him, let alone Charlotte and the others. Then, everyone else, including Watson, stood up and bowed to the older man. Compared to the others, Watson was more likely to put on an act. At the same time, he looked in the direction of Count Grey and made eye contact with him. He did not know why Count Grey was there at that time. Perhaps he wanted to report something to him. Sensing his gaze, Count Grey waved his hand at the crowd, indicating that they did not need to be courteous with him. Then, he said, I see the children of the three Grand Dukes had gathered here, and even the sword saints and Master Antonio's disciple, young Master Watson, is here. I have always admired Master Antonio and the sword saint. The former has been the greatest mage in the kingdom since its foundation, guarding the kingdom, while the latter has used his powerful force to coerce other countries around him not to invade us. As the disciple of those two important figures, young Master Watson must be a person worthy of respect. Count Grey rambled on, leaving Watson completely confused. It seemed that Count Grey was not there to report to him. Then what did he want? Young Master Watson is a respectable person, and even his maid is so knowledgeable. So, I have decided that all your expenses today will be waived. In addition, I want to give everyone a real sun gem and a moon gem each. Count Grey clapped his hands, and a row of maids walked into the room. The maids were holding a tray covered with a red cloth. When they removed the red fabric, two types of fruits were revealed. The fruits emitted a weak light, and each breath was like a beating heart. The moment the fruits appeared, a fragrance that was 100 times stronger than the wine instantly filled the entire room. At that time, Casey, Charlotte, and Lily immediately gulped. It's the real sun gem and moon gem. Aren't those fruits very precious? Why are there so many of them here? Is it because of Watson? Casey subconsciously looked at Watson. A sun gem could produce 100 bottles of sun wine, and a bottle of sun wine could be sold for 1,000 gold coins. In other words, a sun gem could be sold for 100,000 gold coins, and each plate had two kinds of fruits, the sun and the moon. Based on the number of people they had, each of them could get 2 fruits, and so, the plate held 200,000 gold coins. Is that really something we can eat? Charlotte, Lily, and even Lana looked troubled because the fruit in front of them was too good and precious, and they did not dare to eat it. They knew that they were not qualified to meet Count Grey, but he even gave them those precious fruits. The only one who could make that happen was Watson. Count Grey had said that he respected Antonio and Reed, and he also respected Watson. However, was pure respect worth Count Grey putting so much effort into Watson? He felt that something was not right. While everyone was thinking, Count Grey bowed to Watson. Young Master Watson, I wonder if my current service is to your and your friend's satisfaction? If you are not satisfied, I can bring more sun and moon fruits and let those people take some home. Stop, put those sun and moon gems here. You should leave quickly. Watson waved his hand. What was Count Grey trying to do? Aside from Nightingale, none of those people were his friends. Secondly, although the fruits that Count Grey gave out were only wild fruits on Mount Creation, they could be sold for a high price of 100,000 gold coins. The fruits on those trays would cost them a few million gold coins. Watson felt sorry for the loss, not to mention that Count Grey had to give out more things. Of course, young Master Watson. We'll leave now. Please call us if you need anything later. Count Grey bowed to Watson, turned around, and left the room with a group of maids and waiters, closing the door with concern. After leaving the room, Count Grey sighed in frustration. It seems like the Black Emperor is not satisfied. After knowing that he and his friends came to the Holy Dragon Tavern for dinner, I rushed here as fast as I could and used the best service I thought to please him so that he would have dignity in front of his friends. Were those sun and moon gems of low quality, so he felt embarrassed? According to Klein's suggestion, everyone only has 10 minutes to meet the Black Emperor. Whether or not the Black Emperor was satisfied with them was entirely up to them. I've run out of time, so I'll have to see how the other higher-ups handle it. After muttering a few words, Count Grey turned around and left, preparing to tell the others about Watson's reaction when he entered the room. Although he did not want the others to curry favor with Watson, he wanted to make Watson happy. After Count Grey left, everyone in the room gulped. Watson, can we enjoy those sun and moon fruits? Lily's face was almost touching the sun fruits in front of her. She resisted the temptation to ask. Those fruits were given by Count Grey for Watson's sake. It was not in line with a nobleman's etiquette to enjoy the fruits without asking Watson. However, the two fruits in front of her were too fragrant. She could not resist the temptation. You can eat them if you want. Watson sighed. Whoosh. Lily, who had been waiting for that sentence, immediately picked up the sun fruit and put it into her mouth. She was too quick with her actions. After eating the whole fruit, Lily's mouth instantly bloated. The juice slid down her pink lips. She did not even have time to wipe it before she revealed an intoxicated look. It's hard to imagine that there is such a delicious fruit in the world. It is as expected of the fruit on the world tree that only ripens after thousands of years. To be able to eat such a fruit feels like my life is worth it. That's an exaggeration. The color of that sun gem looks very ordinary. It should not be fully ripe yet. Nightingale picked up a sun gem, took a bite, and put it down. That scene made the others, who had already stuffed the sun gem into their mouths, look amazed. They thought Nightingale was bluffing when she said she had eaten the sun gem. Then, they understood that Nightingale was probably telling the truth. It was their first time eating such fruit, and they almost swallowed their tongues. Nightingale could have pretended to be so calm. She was only a little maid at the border, but she had eaten the sun fruit. It was hard to imagine what Watson usually ate. Perhaps it was the phoenix eggs and platinum-tier magical beast meat that Nightingale had mentioned in the beginning. They had looked down on Watson's background since he was from the border, but they learned that they were wrong. Watson had enjoyed such good food, but he acted like he did not know how to order some food. He was too modest. Was he even a nobleman? Perhaps a real nobleman who had the strength to keep a low profile. Chapter 405. The Self-Doubting Watson. Watson did not know what the other people in the room were thinking. He looked at the two fruits in front of him and found them difficult to eat. It was not that the fruits in front of him were terrible but that he had eaten too many of them and felt nothing. In addition, those two fruits were no longer of any use to him. He was considering whether or not he should eat them later or have Count Grey take them back to brew wine. That way, he would save an additional 200,000 gold coins. They had no idea he was sighing about the sun and moon gems. In the eyes of others, it was even more certain that Watson was not interested in those things. He must have had better food than that. I've already tasted the sun gem. I wonder what the difference is with the moon gem. Lily licked her lips and all the juice around her lips. Her gaze fell on the second fruit. She transformed into a gluttonous cat and swallowed it in 2 or 3 mouthfuls. She no longer had the demeanor of a noble lady. The others were like her. Everyone ate 2 fruits and only took a few mouthfuls. They did not have the time to savor it because it was too delicious. Just as everyone was immersed in the delightful food, Casey suddenly exclaimed, "I've advanced to gold tier. Count Grey did not lie to us. Those 2 fruits can really raise one's strength to gold. I have advanced to gold tier, and I've also grasped the light and dark elemental combat aura. If I had known that there were such strange fruits in the capital, why would I eat those awful tasting potions with little effect? As Casey spoke, a powerful aura of gold spread from his body. The light and dark elemental magic converged on his body, turning into a magical storm. He was so excited that tears streamed down his face. He was genuinely regretful. The sun and moon gems had increased his strength. Unlike the other potions that forcefully increased his strength, causing his combat aura or magic elements to be inferior to cultivators of the same level, the essence of those two gems was a large amount of life essence and sun and moon energy. Once consumed, it could help a person change their physique. Once their physique was greatly improved, their strength would naturally increase as well. One was mainly to increase one's strength, while the other was to improve one's life level so that one's strength would increase. Naturally, the effects would not be on the same level. My strength has also increased to gold tier. That fruit is too powerful. When I return home, I'll ask Father if similar fruits are sold in other parts of the kingdom. If there are, then I'll buy them, even if they cost 100,000 gold coins for one. The reason she went to the Royal Academy was not that she was talented in cultivation. It was just that she was too bored at home and wanted to go to the capital to find Watson to have some fun. For that reason, she drank a large number of potions. Those potions were a burden to her, who was already weak. The absorption effect was not even as good as Casey's. However, at that moment, the remaining medicinal effects in her body and the fruits had merged, significantly improving her body and allowing her to enter the gold tier. Not only had her strength increased, Lana even had a feeling that her sunlight sickness had improved a little. At least at that moment, even if she did not open the parasol in the house, she would not feel the light stinging her skin. She even had a feeling that even if she were exposed to the sunlight, as long as it was not for too long, it would not be a problem. What you said is true. Other than fire elements, I can also sense the light and dark elements. But why didn't I feel the increase in strength that you said? Lily reached out with her right hand, and a red flame appeared. Suddenly, the flame was covered with a layer of light and turned into a golden flame. Then, a bone-chilling feeling struck everyone. The flame in Lily's hand turned from gold to black. It wriggled like a big mouth that could swallow everything. I didn't feel the increase in strength either, said Charlotte. She also opened her right hand. She had mastered water elemental magic. The water element was covered with dazzling light elements at one time and dark elements at another time. The sun gem and the moon gem only have the greatest effect on those who have not advanced to gold tier. Once a gold tier person consumes that fruit, they will not advance in their tier. They will only receive the cultivation talent of the light and dark elements, Watson said. Is that why you didn't eat it? Charlotte's eyes flashed. She had been wondering why Watson did not eat the fruits. The fruit clearly had such a strong effect. Then she learned that the effect would be weakened if a gold tier elite ate it. Watson's strength had clearly surpassed gold tier, and he looked as if he had eaten that before. Watson's power at such a young age was not only because Antonio and Reed had taught him well but also because of those natural treasures. Why am I gold tier? If I weren't gold tier, I would be able to advance now. Wow, I'm so sad. Lily looked somewhat discouraged when she heard Watson's explanation and almost burst into tears. Silly Lily, if everyone thinks like you, then there will be no powerful people in the world. Furthermore, isn't strength gained from eating the same as strength gained through hard work? It's not the same. The strength gained from eating is fast and comfortable, unlike myself, who is tired from training and may not even advance successfully after 10 years of hard work. I would choose the few seconds of eating a delicious fruit. Casey sighed. I should not have worked so hard before. If I had known that a fruit could raise me to gold tier, I would have played even more. My youth was wasted just like that. Quote, touched by Casey's words, Lily screamed even more sadly. That made Charlotte, who wanted to comfort her, glare at Casey. She was about to retort, but she suddenly realized that she had nothing to say because it was the truth. If a fruit could allow a person to advance to gold tier, then who would want to spend more than 10 years of hard work cultivating it? Why would they want to suffer like that? Miss Lily, don't be too sad. There aren't many things in this world that can help people increase their strength. Otherwise, gold tier elites would be everywhere. We're fortunate to be able to eat that fruit by chance. Even though it did not increase our strength, At least we got 2 brand new cultivation talents. Outsiders don't even have the chance to obtain cultivation talents, let alone increase their strength. Watson comforted her. Lily thought about it and felt that it was reasonable, so she stopped crying. Watson, what you said makes sense. Just awakening my light and dark magic talents can increase my strength by several times. If I can master different types of magical elements simultaneously, I might be able to command the world in the Royal Academy's Mage Department. By the way, Watson, how many types of magical elements have you mastered? As Antonio's disciple, and having eaten such a good treasure, Watson must have mastered many magical elements. Me? Watson smiled. I know a few. All kinds of magical elements. He would be a mage with all the elements. The group had a strange look on their faces. They did not believe Watson's words at all. If he only knew a few, then Antonio would have become his master for nothing. Fortunately, Watson, you are not in the mage department. Otherwise, none of us would be alive. Oh, right, speaking of which, we saw that you signed up for the warrior department. Are you also a skillful warrior? I can't say that I am good at it. I just know a little about it. Watson, don't be modest. Almost no one in the entire warrior department is more talented than you who can become the Sword Saint's disciple. Not only do you know magic, but you also know sword techniques. What an enviable talent. Charlotte's tone was a little sour. Previously, she was envious of Watson's talent. Then, she was jealous of Watson's background. She had always felt that the border was an impoverished place because there had always been rumors in the kingdom that the border count and the king were on bad terms. Therefore, the border was not connected to the kingdom. Instead, it was self-governed, causing most of the people in the kingdom to feel that the border was barbaric and backward. That was the most significant misunderstanding in the history of the kingdom. If Watson knew what Charlotte was thinking at that moment, he would definitely point out the mistake in her thinking. Before he developed the Black Moon Castle, the border was indeed what everyone imagined, barbaric and backward. However, with the help of his fusion system, the border was the wealthiest place in the entire kingdom. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's start eating. After eating such delicious fruits as the Sun Gem and the Moon Gem, I feel like I can't even eat the other food. Lily rubbed her stomach. She did not really feel full. However, the fruits were too delicious, so it was hard to eat something inferior. Lana said, yeah, why don't we just eat the Sun and Moon Gems for this meal and drink some wine brewed from those 2 fruits? Unless they have a phoenix egg or platinum tier magical beast meat that Miss Nightingale mentioned before? I wonder if phoenix eggs or platinum tier magical beast meat are better than those 2 fruits. Of course, the phoenix eggs and the platinum tier magical beast meat are more delicious, especially the phoenix egg. After consuming it, one can awaken one's phoenix bloodline and grow wings similar to a phoenix. The platinum tier magical beast meat is also very fragrant. At that level, even if it is just a bug or a blade of grass, the taste is completely different from what we usually eat. After all, the life level of a platinum tier magical beast has already evolved, and it can be called a mythical object. Nightingale talked about those 2 kinds of food with confidence as if she had had them the previous day. Nightingale did eat those 2 kinds of food often. When Mount Creation had only been built, there was a shortage of phoenix eggs and platinum tier magical beast meat. They could only eat those during a feast. However, after 2 years on Mount Creation, the resources had expanded, and it had become common practice to use the wish for the world ring to copy phoenix eggs and platinum tier magical beast meat. In other words, phoenix eggs were like ordinary eggs on Mount Creation. Nightingale's standard had increased after her extended stay on Mount Creation. She was not even used to the plain food that so-called high-class noblemen in the kingdom usually ate. That's great. I haven't eaten platinum tier magical beast meat, let alone phoenix eggs. I wonder if I can eat it in this lifetime? Lily expressed her feelings while drooling. Miss, you're lucky today. The Holy Dragon Tavern just happened to hunt a platinum tier magical beast. Our boss told me to send it here. You'll have a good meal soon. Just as Lily's voice fell, a burly man with a buzz cut and an apron rushed in from outside. He carried a thick tail on his shoulder. They saw scales on the tail, so they guessed it must have been the tail of a dragon. They also saw the blood that oozed from the tail, so they knew that it had just been cut off. Judging from the aura emanating from that tail, it really is the product of a platinum tier magical beast. But we just mentioned that we wanted to eat a platinum tier magical beast, and someone sent the magical beast meat to us? Isn't that too much of a coincidence? Charlotte looked puzzled. Then, she asked, and how much is that magical beast meat? If it's too expensive, then we won't be able to afford it. No one in the kingdom had ever eaten platinum tier magical beast meat. Even a plate of gold tier magical beast meat was worth more than 1,000 gold coins. The platinum tier magical beast meat was worth 100 times more because of its rarity. Let's have it. I've never eaten platinum tier magical beast meat before. Even if I have to borrow money from my family, I want to taste it. Unlike Charlotte, Lily's eyes were already staring at platinum tier magical beast meat. Peeved. When he heard that, Watson picked up the sun wine in front of him and took a sip. He looked at the burly man with the magical beast meat, and he almost spat out a mouthful of wine. Watson, what's wrong? Lana, who was sitting on his right, asked with concern. I'm fine. Watson took a handkerchief and wiped his mouth and clothes. He was coughing. He felt anxious because he realized that the burly man with a buzz cut was none other than Basher from the Severed Fingers gang. It was one thing for Count Grey to appear there. After all, he was the owner of that place. It was understandable for him to serve some precious fruits when he was there to inspect the business from time to time. What was Basher doing there? Basher's mission was to take paid jobs to kill vicious villains. Did he have a target at the tavern? If that were the case, why was Basher carrying the tail of a dragon on his shoulder? Was the dragon his target? Or perhaps it was the villain's mount? Watson did not understand it at all. Young masters and ladies, don't worry. I don't need your money for this meal. I worship Master Antonio and Master Reed. When I heard that young Master Watson was here, I quickly hunted a platinum tier dragon. I have sent its liver and steak to the kitchen. Then I will grill some dragon tail for everyone. The dragon meat can increase one's strength, strengthen one's physique and extend one's lifespan. The dragon tail is where all the essence is gathered, and it is also delicious. Basher tightened the apron that did not fit his body. He retrieved a kitchen knife and hacked the dragon tail. He removed the scales and cut the tail into pieces of similar proportions in just a few seconds. Then, he waved his other hand, and a ball of hot flame appeared on the ground, roasting the meat. As a fire elemental platinum tier warrior, Basher's knife skills and fire control were not a problem. The dragon tail became charred on the outside and tender on the inside in a short while. The fragrance filled the air. Then, Basher took a handful of seasoning from somewhere and sprinkled it on the meat. The oil exploded, and the scent in the room became even stronger. As one would expect from platinum tier dragon meat, it smells so good, I can't help drooling just by smelling it. Lily twitched her nose and looked uneasy. If it were not for her pride, she would have walked to Basher and tasted the dragon meat. The tail meat has been roasted. Don't worry, I will distribute them to you now. Basher placed the dragon tail on everyone's plates. When he passed by Watson, he revealed a respectful expression that he had never shown to others. Young Master Watson, I wonder if you are satisfied with this dish? Well, before I tell you whether I am satisfied or not, may I ask where you got that dragon tail? Just outside the royal city, under a triangular mountain peak. We saw that giant dragon flying in the sky, and it had killed some of our people. There's a triangular mountain peak outside the royal city called the Giant Dragon Mountain Peak. There is a special place there for the dragon knights to cultivate giant dragons. Is that where you meant? Casey said as he tore at the dragon meat on his plate. He was eating with a face full of enjoyment. As soon as he finished speaking, Casey felt everyone's gaze on him, and he froze. My father told me about that, so it might not be accurate. Besides, there are many triangular mountains outside the royal city. Maybe the Holy Dragon Tavern killed a wild dragon. After all, it's a tavern specially chosen by the king. They wouldn't make such a simple mistake. Exactly so. How could the Holy Dragon Tavern make such a mistake? Quote, even if they killed the kingdom's dragon, it's the tavern's problem. It has nothing to do with us. The group was relieved when they heard that. Only one person frowned, and that was Watson. He stared at Basher. Can you describe exactly where you killed that dragon? Young Master Watson, I think the kitchen is calling for me to help cook the dragon meat. So I'll go do that now. As for where I slaughtered the dragon, let's talk about it next time. Realizing that he might have caused some trouble, Basher rubbed his hand on the apron as he laughed awkwardly and left the room in a flash, leaving behind Watson, who had fallen into self-doubt. What on earth are those people from the Severed Fingers gang doing? They're giving away sun and moon gems for free, and they're also slaughtering dragons. Did I do something wrong? Are they going against me? Just as Watson was thinking about what he had done, the door to the private room opened once again. Veronica, wearing a long white dress and a sun hat, walked in and rushed to Watson's side, carrying him in her arms. Young Master Watson, I've finally met you. I'm an admirer of Master Antonio and the Sword Saint. I also admire you very much. After dinner, can you give me an autograph and come sit in my room? Everyone was stunned. It was one thing for the people in the tavern to treat Watson to a meal and a drink, but even admirers had appeared. Could Watson be that famous in the royal city? What the hell was he sitting on? Watson only felt a fragrant wind blowing against his face. He felt a wave of dizziness, not from the smell but from anger. Chapter 406. Questions and Answers. Veronica, what are you doing? To be more precise, what are you trying to do? Even though Watson was angry, he still let Veronica sit next to him and asked in a low voice. First, it was Count Grey, then Basher. Then, Veronica appeared. Were they not afraid that others would find out that those Severed Fingers higher-ups had appeared in front of him? We don't have any special thoughts, Black Emperor. We just want to make you appear more elegant in front of your friends, so we prepared those things to make you happy. Did we do something wrong? Quote. Veronica blinked pitifully, her charming face extremely moving. So it was to make me happy. Only then did Watson understand that the members of the Broken Fingers were not dissatisfied with him, but just the opposite. If Veronica had not said that at that moment, he would not have realized it. Subconsciously, he reached out and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. I see. Well, I'll forgive you this time. Don't let it happen again. Quote. Considering the Severed Fingers gang's higher-ups were also kind-hearted and that Basher and the others had already done something out of line, it seemed impossible to save them. It was better to let nature take its course. Just as he was thinking about that, Basher, who had just left the room, suddenly returned. He was holding a unicorn with a halo on its head and shining fur all over its body. Young Master Watson, you guys are fortunate. Our shop has obtained another white gold tier magical beast, the angelic unicorn. You did not seem to enjoy the dragon tail very much just now. Do you not like dragon meat? How about I cook that angelic unicorn instead? Shut up, Basher. That angelic unicorn is mine. If you dare to cook it, I will cook you. A woman's voice came from outside, forcing Basher, who had just entered the room, to walk out with the unicorn and close the door. Elvin, it's just a magical beast. Is it not worth it if it can make young Master Watson happy? It's not your magical beast. You really don't have to stand there and talk. That is a reward given to me by young Master Watson. If that magical beast was yours, would you have killed it? Elvin, why are you asking such a stupid question? Is it not obvious? If that magical beast were mine, I definitely would not have killed it. The sound of Elvin and Basher's argument could be faintly heard from outside. Because the private rooms in the Red Dragon region had excellent soundproofing, the two's words could not be heard clearly. However, Watson still managed to hear it with his outstanding strength. His face kept twitching. What's happening outside? It seems like someone is quarreling. Furthermore, what did that chef just say? A platinum tier unicorn? I just ate a dragon tail, and now I can eat unicorn meat. I'm too lucky. Unicorn is known as a holy beast. It can only be found in the Forest of Eternity in the south. Its meat should be very delicious since it eats fruits and nectar. Casey glanced outside and licked his lips, looking very expectant. Watson, do you have anything to do with that shop? Charlotte looked at Watson with a strange gaze. At that moment, she had already noticed some clues. The Holy Dragon Tavern did not initially sell platinum tier magical beast meat. That day, there was platinum tier magical beast meat and wine brewed from magical fruits from the Forest of Eternity. Those things were given to them for free. Everyone who came to the private room, including Count Grey, claimed to be a disciple of Antonio and the Sword Saint. They were also very respectful to Watson. It was hard not to think that Watson had anything to do with that shop. Why would I have anything to do with that shop? Watson picked up his knife and fork, ready to destroy the dragon tail meat on the plate in front of him. Although the dragon tail meat in front of him was a dragon from the kingdom that Bashar had killed, it would be difficult for him to explain if the king pursued the matter later. However, it would be a waste if he did not eat it after killing it. As he was thinking about that, the moment he picked up his knife and fork, the door opened again. Bashar walked in with a bruised and swollen face. "Young Master Watson, I'm sorry. Due to some reasons, we can't cook the angelic unicorn for you. Please wait for the dragon steaks, they will be ready soon. As compensation to everyone, the dragon steaks will be free of charge. Hurry up and go." Watson inserted the dragon tail meat into his mouth and chewed a few times before swallowing it. He took out a handkerchief to wipe his mouth. Then, he asked Veronica for parchment paper and a quill pen. He used the quill pen to write his name on the parchment paper. After satisfying the request to sign Veronica's name, he waved his hand. "It's enough to have dragon meat in the dishes we just ordered. Focus on serving the dishes and don't come in again." Watson's words were equivalent to a banishment. Bashar and Veronica could only helplessly get up with the signature and slowly walk out of the door. "Young Master Watson, by the way, there's one more thing. Get lost." "Yes, Master Watson." When Veronica walked to the door, Bashar seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and showed his head in front of the door. When Watson reprimanded him, he was immediately frightened. He hid his head outside the door and closed the door. "Everyone, why are you looking at me like that? Let's eat." Watson turned his head and saw that Charlotte and the others around him looked at him with a very strange gaze. He smiled. He knew that he was acting a little strange, but in the eyes of ordinary people, those people with broken fingers should be people from the Holy Dragon Tavern. Even if Charlotte and the others were puzzled about why those people were so respectful to him, they probably would not have thought that those were from the Severed Fingers gang. In fact, Charlotte and the others did not think so. Their expressions were strange because, in their eyes, those people from the Holy Dragon Tavern were too respectful to Watson. They were already too respectful. They did not know if the people of the Holy Dragon Tavern treated the king with such good service. However, under such circumstances, Watson still flew into a rage out of dissatisfaction. Clearly, he felt that that kind of service was not very good. They also did not know how much high-end aristocratic education Watson usually received at home. Initially, Charlotte and the others did not say it out loud, but in their hearts, they were secretly proud of their status as descendants of the three archdukes. However, after comparing themselves with Watson, they felt like they were country bumpkins who did not know anything. The feeling of showing off completely disappeared. Soon, the dishes that Watson and the others ordered in the dragon steak were served. Everyone praised the dishes again. That meal lasted for about half an hour. During that time, there was no sign of anyone breaking into the private room. That made Watson feel relieved. "I've really learned a lot by following Watson today. Not only did we find a shop that sells good weapons, but more importantly, we experienced what it means to be a real noble." After the meal, when it was time to pay the bill, Charlotte stood up first. She wiped her mouth elegantly while lowering her head to look at her slightly bulging stomach. As a noble lady, she would usually only eat 50 to 80% of her fill. However, she was 120% full. The food in front of her was simply too delicious. Yes. Previously, there were people in the capital who said that the border was very poor. They're really ignorant. Even Watson's maid eats phoenix eggs and platinum-tier magical beast meat. "If there's a chance, I really want to go to the border to take a look," Lily said, her eyes filled with envy. "Wait for the chance then." Watson smiled. After a meal, his relationship with those youths had become closer. After all, they were of similar ages and were all students of the Royal Academy. It was very easy for them to get to know each other. "Lily, you only know how to eat. Since the borders are so rich, there must be many things that we can't imagine. That place might even be more prosperous than the capital. It's too much to be more prosperous than the capital. At most, the taxes there are not as heavy as those in other parts of the kingdom. In addition, the border is close to other countries, so it's convenient to trade. That's why there are some things that the capital doesn't have." As soon as Charlotte's voice fell, Lana interrupted with a parasol. She looked indifferent. Even Charlotte, who was complimenting her, had a similar expression. Even if the border was rich, in terms of prosperity, it could not be compared to the prosperity of the capital. Watson could tell that those people were too lazy to explain their thoughts. Whether the capital was prosperous or not, he would know once those people went to the border to see it for themselves. Everyone chatted as they walked and left the Holy Dragon Tavern. Lily was supposed to treat them that day, but because of the tavern's operations, almost all the food was given to them for free, so Lily almost did not spend any money. Today is really a fulfilling day. The weapons we bought at the weapons store must have been delivered to our mansion. Charlotte and I have to go back to take a look first, so let's part ways here. Brother Casey and I also have to go home to study and prepare for the Royal Academy's opening in 2 days. Then let's say goodbye, everyone. We'll meet again. Watson waved at the teenagers and sighed in relief. Those people had finally left, and the severed fingers gang leaders no longer fooled around in front of him. Just as he thought that, a muffled bang sounded not far from him. It sounded like something had exploded. Turning his head, Watson realized that a few hot air balloons had exploded in midair. Dressed as a magician, Klein leaned on his crutches and came in front of Watson. He took off his top hat and bowed. "Dear guests, I am the president of the capital's central bank. Our bank is currently holding an event. As long as you can answer the questions we have prepared, then you will get 1,000,000 gold coins." 1,000,000 gold coins? Really? Charlotte and company, who were about to leave, stopped in their tracks when they saw that scene. They turned around. "Can I participate?" Lily asked as she raised her hand. "Of course." Klein revealed an amiable smile. "Anyone can participate, but if you want to receive the prize, you will have to answer our questions. Our questions are very difficult. I want to give it a try." Lily did not care about Klein's words at all. As a member of one of the 3 Archduke families, she had read many books since she was young, and she knew a lot of things due to her education. Whether it was the kingdom's history or military and political matters, she would know a thing or two about it. "I'll give it a try as well. I'll get a bonus for the question and answer session that is practically prepared for me. It just so happens that I'm a little short of funds recently. With my profound knowledge, it'll be easy for me to get 1,000,000 gold." Casey also pushed his hair back and spoke with a smug look on his face. He headed toward the place Klein had mentioned where there would be a bonus question and answer session. Everyone began to step forward when they suddenly realized that Watson was standing in place with a dark expression. Immediately, they revealed a puzzled look. "Watson, that is a 1,000,000 gold coin prize event. Aren't you planning on joining?" "I'll pass. It's only 1,000,000 gold coins. It's too troublesome to answer the questions," Watson replied perfunctorily. He was lamenting in his heart that he was fine when Klein suddenly appeared. It seemed like he could not escape them no matter what. "Watson, it can't be that you don't know much about the kingdom, right? Don't worry, I'm here. If I pass the test, I'll give you a portion of the reward. After all, it's all because of you that I could eat so much delicious food today." Thinking that Watson might not be good at answering questions, Lily patted her chest and did not give the young man a chance to respond. Instead, she charged straight into the venue for the question and answer session. There were a few other people who were participating in the question and answer session. They were all biting their fingers and looked troubled. Obviously, the question was very difficult. A few staff members holding huge wooden boards with questions written on them stood before those people. When someone answered the question, they would change a batch of wooden boards. If the answer did not come up, those people would be asked to leave the venue after some time. The most challenging question on the wooden board was written as such. "There is a cage with chickens and rabbits in it. The total number of heads is 35, and the number of feet is 94. How many chickens and rabbits do you have?" Not a single participant had been able to answer it. It seems like that is a math question. Lily bit her finger and did not look as relaxed as before. In that world, only the aristocrats could learn math. Other than that, only the finance department and the bank staff in the country knew basic math. The people living at the bottom would only count with their fingers when they were buying things. That kind of problem was too difficult for them. That problem is too difficult. I've been counting for an hour. DMN it. Is there anyone selling chickens and rabbits nearby? Let me buy some to practice with. Many of the participants who were answering the questions were cursing the person who came up with the question. Some wanted to take advantage of the situation. DMN it. I can't even calculate that question. Lily fiddled with her fingers and soon scratched her hair. Silly Lily, you're not that smart, so don't boast. You will not get the reward. Charlotte walked behind Lily and patted her head. After looking at the question, she did some mental calculations and came up with the answer. It should be 23 chickens and 12 rabbits. That kind of question was difficult for people who had never been exposed to mathematics, but it was still something that a well-educated noble could solve. Just as she was about to answer, a male voice suddenly sounded beside Charlotte. Chicken 23, rabbit 12. Turning her head, Charlotte realized that the person who answered was Watson. She could not help but feel a surge of emotions. She did not expect Watson to be able to calculate so quickly. It seemed like Watson was not only powerful, he was also very smart. Watson looked calm as he answered the question, but his heart was the complete opposite. Klein's question was a typical chicken-rabbit cage problem from his previous life. Even elementary school students knew how to solve it. For Klein to ask such a simple question, was it not obvious that he wanted to give away 1,000,000 gold coins? What if someone had answered the question before him? Although 1,000,000 gold coins was not a lot for the Severed Fingers gang, it was a surge of income for other people. Although he could understand the actions of the Severed Fingers leaders who were trying their best to please him, their efforts were too foolish. Watson made up his mind to gather them once the matter was over to give them a good scolding. Young Master's answer is correct. That is the right answer. Quote, Klein came in front of Watson and announced excitedly, that is one of the 3 most difficult questions we prepared. Next, you only need to answer the other 2 questions, and you will be able to take the 1,000,000 gold coins. As for the others who did not answer that question, they are all disqualified. Chicken 12, rabbit 23. I knew it was that answer. DMN it, I was about to calculate it. It's all Watson's fault for being ahead of me. Casey pounded his chest, clearly regretting the 1,000,000 gold coins he had missed. There were many people like Casey. They looked regretful as they looked at Watson curiously, guessing who that youth was. Who is that person? We can't answer the question, but he seems to have answered it all at once. Some people asked their companions around them, and some thought of something after carefully observing Watson's appearance. He seems to be Watson, the guy who became Master Antonio and Master Sword Saint's disciple at the same time. Brother Casey, you have the answer backward. You did not calculate it. There's no need to lie. Lana comforted Casey with a helpless look. So he was the astrologer and the Sword Saint's disciple. It was fine then. Becoming the disciples of both of them required a lot of talent, so it was not surprising that Watson could solve the difficult question quickly. The next question is even more difficult. Klein waved his hand, and his subordinates immediately walked out. They held a chessboard 8x8 in their hands and placed it in front of Watson. The second difficult question is to use coins to fill up that chessboard. The requirement is that the number of coins placed in the back of the chessboard must be twice that of the previous one, and the total number of coins must be copied in each of the squares. That problem is simple. I can do it. Lily began to take out money from her pocket, but Charlotte stopped her. Silly Lily, you have been eliminated. There is no chance. Then, Charlotte turned her head. It seems that that problem is much simpler than the previous one. As long as there is enough money, it can be placed and completed. Watson should be able to complete it easily. Is that problem really that simple? Why does it feel wrong? Lana frowned and stroked her chin with her fingers. What kind of problem is that? It's too simple. I think we can complete the challenge with a few hundred gold coins. Let me do it. Nightingale, who was standing next to Watson, was yawning because arithmetic was not her strong point. When she saw that there was actually such a project, she immediately became interested and wanted to take action. Before she could take out her money, Watson stopped her. Nightingale, don't act so rashly. The problem is not that simple. It is an unsolvable problem. To use coins to fill up the 64 squares, even gold coins that can cover the entire royal city would not be enough. Young Master, are you sure that is the answer? You're the only one who passed the question just now. If you answer that question incorrectly, the 1,000,000 gold coins will be gone. Klein fanned the flames as he revealed a regretful expression. Chapter 407. Holy Sword of Time. Klein asked, Young Master, are you sure that is the answer? As Klein asked Watson, he was weighing in his mind what grand method he would use to give Watson 1,000,000 gold coins without causing a stir. He thought for a moment before saying, why don't we use a magic fireworks display when we use the gold coins? We can also pull out 2 banners on both sides of the street and announce that the winner of the 1,000,000 gold coins is you, Black Emperor. That way, your name will be deeply engraved in the hearts of the people." Even though Watson had yet to confirm his answer, Klein felt that Watson had already answered it. That was because Watson was right. The question he had posed was unsolvable. Fill a chessboard with 64 squares. The square at the back had to be twice the amount of money in the square at the front. It looked simple, but it was actually very difficult to do. Even placing a gold coin in the first square would require a gold coin that exceeded the capacity of the royal city. Klein understood that because he had been using the 10 rings that Watson had given him to duplicate gold coins. He realized that even if it was just a gold coin, after multiplying it dozens of times, the amount he could obtain was an astronomical figure. As a banker, he was not aware of that logic. Watson, who had shown his extraordinary intelligence in front of them those past few days, was clearly aware of that logic. Klein firmly believed in it. He had already heard about Basher, Count Grey, and Veronica's defeat in the tavern. From his point of view, that was very normal. Watson was clearly different from ordinary children. His intelligence was as deep as the ocean, and his strength was as vast as the sky. How could such a great existence be complacent just because he ate delicious food or did not need to spend money to gain respect in front of his friends? Klein thought a great existence like Watson had better taste and would view problems from a higher level. Therefore, he came up with that idea. He was prepared to praise Watson's wisdom and not his strength. At the same time, he would display Watson's uniqueness in front of everyone. Influential people would be numb to praise because they were always praised for their strength. It was just like how Watson was the disciple of Antonio and the Sword Saint. Everyone who saw him had the impression that Watson had outstanding talent and strength, which was why he was chosen by the 2 important figures of the kingdom. Klein had to do the opposite on the basis that he understood that. Everyone praised Watson's strength and wealth. He insisted on proving Watson's wisdom. He believed that if he continued to flatter him, Watson would definitely be very pleased. Klein thought about many things. His thoughts drifted to the scene where Watson would receive 1,000,000 gold coins in prize money in public and praise him in front of everyone's envious and admiring gazes. "Klein, you did well." Then, he would casually give him a bunch of rewards. The corners of his mouth could not help but curve up in excitement. "Watson, your answer is wrong. How can there be an unsolvable problem in that world? Since the other party came up with that question, there must be an answer. Otherwise, how can the person who answered get 1,000,000 gold coins?" Watson, quickly think again. Quote, in the face of Klein's question, Watson had yet to answer. Lily, who was beside him, was already anxious. It was as though the person who was about to receive 1,000,000 gold coins was not Watson but her. Yes, no matter how you think about it, the bank would not have come up with an unsolved question to make things difficult for others deliberately, Charlotte said. Klein shook his head and said, "I insist on my answer. Actually, that problem is not unsolvable. It's just that the number of gold coins required to solve it far exceeds 1,000,000. People with that kind of wealth would not bother to solve it. That's why I said that that problem is unsolvable. If you don't believe me, you can try it." Watson spread his hands. Following his voice, Casey could not help but walk forward. He took out a large bag of money from her bosom. There were at least several thousand gold coins in it. "Watson, since you say so, then I won't be courteous and accept that money. I mean, as your good friend, I will help you solve that problem. I think that should not violate the rules." Although he was humble on the surface, Casey was cursing Watson in his heart. Just how many gold coins could be used to put 64 squares on the chessboard? It was estimated that a few hundred gold coins would be enough. Later, when he received the prize money, he could convince Watson to give him a portion. After all, that was money that he obtained through his own hard work. Watson would not deny him that. Feeling pleased with himself, Casey began to put money on the chessboard. He put 1 gold coin on the first grid, 2 on the second grid, and 4 on the third grid. According to that number, he quickly put 10 grids together. He looked very relaxed on the first 10 grids, and the surrounding crowd also looked regretful, sighing for Watson. He had just answered such a difficult question, so why did he shrink back from such a simple question? Why was he giving the 1,000,000 to someone else? Then, Casey, who had placed the money on the 10th square, suddenly had an ugly expression on his face. According to his calculations, the next square required 1,024 gold coins. How did the gold coins reach 1,000 so quickly? I only brought over 10,000 gold coins with me today. I had used 10,000 to purchase platinum weapons, while the remaining was only over 5,000 gold coins. Clenching his teeth, Casey placed a pile of over 1,000 gold coins in the 11th slot and over 2,000 gold coins in the next space. As he looked at the 13th slot, his fingers trembled. He fished in his wallet that was about to empty and stopped. What's going on? At that moment, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. There were only 64 grids and nothing special about them. However, he had used up 5,000 gold coins by placing them in more than 10 grids. The next grid would need to be doubled, meaning he would need more than 4,000 gold coins. After that, he would need more than 10,000 gold coins. The more he doubled, the more terrifying it would be. After 20 grids, he would need 100,000 or even 1 million gold coins to fill each grid. Casey, what's wrong with you? Isn't that a simple question for you? Don't tell me you don't have enough money? Watson's voice came from behind, making Casey's face turn red with embarrassment. He had wanted to prove himself in front of everyone, and at the same time, get the reward to hit Watson's face. He did not expect that he would be played by Watson and lose face in front of everyone. Klein smiled and said, "It looks like young Master Casey has failed. Then, I'll announce the correct answer here." Young Master Watson's answer was correct. Indeed, it's impossible to fill the chessboard with gold coins that don't cover the entire capital. That is the mystery of that question. I asked young Master Watson twice if he insisted on his answer, but he insisted on it. It looks like he did not get it right but really understood that principle. Let us congratulate young Master Watson. As long as he gets one more question right, he'll be able to get 1,000,000 gold coins. Klein gave Watson a thumbs up and tried his best to flatter him. He did not even spare a glance at Casey. Even when he accidentally caught a glimpse of Casey, his eyes were filled with disdain. What kind of trash was that, Casey? How dare he jump out to help Watson receive his reward? He even dared to boast shamelessly that he had answered the question. He was about to die from laughter. When Klein announced his answer, the surrounding crowd immediately erupted in applause, followed by whispers. That Casey, is he the Ptolemy family, second young master? That's right, it's him. I heard that he had made a name for himself in the floating city, which was why he came to the capital and became a member of the Royal Academy. However, compared to Watson, he's still far from it. The surrounding discussions made Casey's face redder and redder. He gritted his teeth and returned to Lana's side. Brother Casey, when you begged Watson for mercy and gave him a platinum-tier weapon, I thought you had become smarter. Now it seems that you are still the same as before. Father will be angry if this continues. Shut up, Lana. You are not allowed to write about this matter in the letter and report it to Father. Otherwise, I will not be polite to you. Casey gritted his teeth and said fiercely. On the one hand, he had to endure his fear of Watson. On the other hand, it was also the family's request. He would always want to be in the limelight, and the temptation of 1,000,000 gold coins made him somewhat complacent. However, he had already calmed down. Lana shrugged at Casey's words, looking indifferent. Instead, she looked at Watson and licked her lips. Watson, I'm really getting more and more interested in you. Lana was always sick, so she was unable to train. Therefore, she liked to read when she was free. She might not be able to compare to anyone in terms of strength, but she had the confidence to surpass anyone in terms of intelligence. In the Ptolemy family, whether it was the good-for-nothing Casey or the bright Mike, they were nothing in her eyes. It was precisely because of that outstanding ability that her father always lamented that it would be great if she were a boy. However, she hesitated on the second question. She felt that that question was not that simple, but she did not see the problem at a glance like Watson, which shocked her. Strength was inferior to wisdom. A person with muscles might not be able to display his strength in front of an intelligent person, which might cause their death. That was the principle Lana had always adhered to. Therefore, she firmly believed that as long as she was smart enough, she could recruit a group of strong people for her own use, even if she could not cultivate them. That was the first time she had seen someone smarter than her. He was powerful, and his intelligence far exceeded that of an ordinary person. Was there really such a genius in the world? Lana did not believe it. Come on, Watson, let me take a good look at just how smart you are. It looks like the difficulty for the award-winning question is gradually increasing. If you can't answer the third question, it proves that there is not that much of a difference between us. Lana looked at Watson, waiting for him to answer Klein's third question. The third question is even more difficult than the first two questions combined. Klein revealed a mysterious expression and lowered the brim of his top hat. The surrounding onlookers looked nervous. He said, "The third question is, what color am I wearing today?" Thump. Some people almost buckled when they heard the question. Many people had strange looks on their faces. What color were his clothes? As long as one was not blind, they would be able to tell that Klein's clothes were black. What kind of question was that? Was Klein trying to go easy on him? Watson's expression also turned odd. It was apparent that Klein had deliberately made him answer the last question, wanting to give him 1,000,000 gold coins. However, such ostentation was not Watson's personality. After making sure that the 1,000,000 gold coins would not fall into the hands of others, Watson was no longer interested in the last question. He said, "Your clothes are yellow." Whoosh. After Watson gave his answer, everyone around looked at Watson in surprise, their faces filled with disbelief. No way. Watson answered it wrongly. He had been doing so well too. Is Watson colorblind? Lily could not help but mutter to herself. Klein's demeanor changed. After Watson deliberately gave the wrong answer, his heart skipped a beat. Was Watson not satisfied with his performance? Perhaps Watson felt that 1,000,000 gold coins were too little? It was useless even if he obtained them. As he pondered nervously, Klein hesitated for a moment before twisting the wish for the world ring he wore on his finger. "Young master, I did not expect you to be able to guess that." "That's right, the clothes I'm wearing are yellow. I thought that no one would be able to answer my 3 questions, but I didn't expect you to answer all 3 of them correctly. Since that's the case, I'll adjust the reward from 1,000,000 gold coins to 10,000,000 gold coins." As Klein spoke, the black robe he was wearing had turned into yellow. That scene completely dumbfounded everyone there. They thought that Klein was an idiot for asking a question like that. Then, they thought that Watson was an idiot for getting the answer wrong. It seemed like they were the real idiots. That person's clothes were yellow. No wonder he would ask that question. However, they did see him in black. It seemed like only Watson could guess that. Lana, who had been observing Watson and Klein closely, fell into a daze after Watson answered the question correctly. Was Watson smarter than her? That was impossible. Perhaps Klein had cast a layer of magic on the clothes to cover the original color, but she had a feeling that things were not that simple. 1,000,000 gold coins had turned into 10,000,000 gold coins. "Watson, you're now a multimillionaire." Lily cast an envious gaze at Watson, her words filled with amazement. Even the 3 Archduke families only had around 10,000,000 gold coins a year. Lily had tens of thousands of gold coins a month as pocket money, which was considered a lot in the Archduke family, but it was just a drop in the bucket in front of Watson. When she was still enjoying the pocket money her family had given her, Watson's wealth was already comparable to her family's. "I know, Miss Lily. No need to be so loud." Watson rubbed his nose with a rather helpless expression. He glared at Klein discreetly and discovered that Klein was arranging for the staff to leave the area. At the same time, he advertised to the people around him. "The Royal City Bank will be doing a lot of activities recently. As long as you are here to deposit money or take out a loan, you will be eligible to participate in the question and answer reward." Without seeing his gaze, Watson could only give up. It was apparent that Klein was trying to curry favor with him while also using that method to win over customers. However, that method was different from his original plan. He planned to take control of the underground forces, and before the king noticed him, he secretly developed and emptied the kingdom. However, it was impossible for him to keep a low profile then. It was one thing for him to become the disciple of the Sword Saint and Antonio, but now that he had tens of millions of assets in his hands, how could such a person not attract the attention of His Majesty the King? Thinking about how he would be monitored by the king in the future, exposing himself to the eyes of others no matter what he did, Watson could not help but palmed his forehead. At that moment, Klein, who had finished promoting his bank to everyone, turned to look at Watson. "Young master, let me take you to withdraw the money. Let's go." Due to the presence of Charlotte, Casey, and company, Watson could not get angry. All he could do was grit his teeth and force a smile. Wait a moment. Before he could take a step forward, Another familiar voice echoed behind him. Watson did not need to turn his head to know that it was Marcus's voice when he heard it. What the higher-ups did that day was ridiculous. Then, Marcus appeared. No matter what the man planned to do, Watson would not be surprised anymore. Turning his head, Watson realized that the person who had stopped him was indeed Marcus. At that moment, Marcus was not wearing the feather coat that he had given him previously. Instead, he was wearing bright white armor. A group of 10 people stood behind him, and they were also in bright armor and held long spears in their hands. As the deputy director of the city defense department, Marcus also had to patrol the streets and maintain law and order in the royal city. Therefore, he appeared to be very busy. That person is the royal city's deputy director of the city defense department, Marcus, right? Why is he here? And he even stopped Watson. Did Watson commit a crime? There were faint sounds of discussion from the surroundings. Some people recognized Marcus and could not help but guess what had happened between Watson and him. In their opinion, unless Watson had committed a crime, there was no reason for him to know Marcus. In the past 2 days, bandits have been rampant in the kingdom. Many weapons stores and medicine stores have been robbed. I wonder if young Master Watson knows about that? Marcus asked righteously as if he did not know Watson. As soon as Marcus said that, the people around him became even more confident of their speculations. Otherwise, why would Marcus only ask Watson? Even if Watson did not commit those thieveries, he must be related to them. I don't know. What does that have to do with me? Watson turned around. It seemed that Marcus did not try to curry favor like the others, which made him slightly relieved. Of course, it has something to do with you. Young Master Watson, didn't the weapon you deposited in the weapons store get stolen? My men and I have already sent people to find it. Marcus waved his hand. The guard behind him immediately carried a thin sword covered with a red cloth and came in front of Watson. The thin blade twitched with a bright light which formed a diamond-shaped array around the sword. The sword's hilt was in the shape of an angel's wings, and fine feathers floated around it. This weapon is called the Holy Sword of Time. It's a 3rd-generation diamond-tier relic. I want to return it to its owner. Chapter 408. Starlight Tier Potion. A diamond-tier holy relic? Really? Aren't most of the other holy relics passed down from generations on display in the kingdom's museums while the rest are in the hands of the Campbell family? Where did that holy relic come from? Did someone give it to Watson? People on both sides of the road discussed animatedly after seeing the holy relic in Marcus's hands. Some were surprised, while others were envious. However, no one believed it because time around the Holy Sword of Time was distorted to a certain extent, and time continued to cycle around the sword. The faces of the guards who held the Holy Sword kept changing between middle-aged men in their 30s and their teenage selves. The phenomenon caused by the sword was shocking, but its terrifying diamond-tier aura made many people present unable to help but kneel. A weapon that could contain such an aura was at least platinum tier or above. I did not expect Watson to have such a powerful holy relic after just obtaining 10 million gold coins. The value of a diamond-tier holy relic can't be estimated. At the very least, it's worth over 1 million gold coins. Doesn't that mean that without those 10 million gold coins, Watson is already wealthy? That thought appeared in the hearts of many noblemen in the crowd at that moment. They looked at the change in Watson's gaze. Previously, they had only thought of Watson as a talented genius. Then, they had to treat Watson as a strong man with a deep background. As expected, Watson held his forehead, and his body shook. Watson, what's wrong? Are you okay? Nightingale looked at Watson worriedly. She felt that Watson was fortunate that day. Wherever Watson went, everyone seemed to be trying to please him and voluntarily offered him many benefits. She did not suspect that those things were done on purpose because Watson had done even more outrageous things before that. Perhaps he was just a little lucky, and maybe that was entirely within the acceptable range. I'm fine. It would be strange if he were fine, Watson complained in his heart. Soon, the people in the royal city would know that he had the diamond-tier holy relic and was a rich genius whose wealth was not inferior to the 3 archdukes' families. When his gaze landed on the hands of Marcus's subordinates, the information of the Holy Sword of Time instantly appeared in his eyes. Diamond-tier holy relic. Holy Sword of Time. Abilities. Rule of Time. Able to freely control the time within the range of one's sight, able to accelerate, pause, and reverse time. Time slice. Able to generate sharp blades of time, causing rapid aging damage to the person in the slice. Time quicksand. Able to release time turbulence, causing large-scale damage to the enemy. Additional ability. World freeze. Consumes all of the power of the holy sword and can unleash an attack that can freeze the entire world for 1 second. As a holy relic, that sword's ability is quite good. Not only can it freeze time between itself and others, but it can also use the blade's destruction as the price to unleash the ability to freeze the world for 1 time. If it's during a battle between 2 armies, releasing the ability to stop the world, 1 second is enough to shatter the other army. After seeing the information of the holy relic, Watson muttered in his heart and sighed at the same time. But can't you give that thing to me privately? Do you have to give it to me openly and let everyone know that the Severed Fingers gang don't know what it means to give gifts? Young Master Watson, the holy sword has been found. Don't you want it, or is the sword not the one you dropped? In fact, other than that sword, we have found other weapons too. Why don't you take a look? No need to look. That sword is mine. Watson cut him off and waved his hand. The holy sword of time in the guard's hand immediately flew into his hand. Then, Watson felt a powerful energy enter his body. It was as though he could age his body if he wanted to. As he held the holy sword of time, Watson looked at Klein. Didn't you say you want to take me to retrieve 10 million gold coins? Let's go. Klein was stunned for a moment before he quickly recovered. Yes, young Master Watson. I'll take you there now. As he spoke, Klein could not help but look at the relic sword in Watson's hand. Then, he glanced at Marcus and gritted his teeth in frustration. I never expected Marcus to give even a holy relic to the Black Emperor. I miscalculated. Compared to 10 million gold coins, a holy relic is indeed more pleasing. As long as one had the money to make a wish, they could have as much as they wanted. Holy relics that had been passed down for generations could not be easily manufactured. As an underground force in the kingdom, he had previously purchased a few holy relics from the black market. However, it was not the one that Marcus had given Watson. Recently, Marcus had used platinum-tier weapons as bait to reach an agreement with many noblemen. Perhaps that holy relic was part of Marcus's transaction. Klein did not want to admit it, but Marcus's gift was better than what he had prepared. That made him somewhat vexed. Why don't I change the reward of 10 million gold coins to 100 million gold coins later? Will the Black Emperor be happy? As he pondered, before Klein could take Watson away, someone stopped them. Watson, there seems to be a problem. Come with me immediately. Who is it again? The corners of Watson's mouth began to twitch. He could not take it anymore. Those Severed Fingers gang leaders had appeared one by one, trying their best to make him stand out in the limelight. They thought it would make him happy, but they did not know that it would only have the opposite effect. No matter who appeared next, he had already decided to scold them and resolutely reject their good intentions. He raised his head. He was stunned when he saw the people who had come. The people who stopped him were not from the Severed Fingers gang. Instead, they were his 2 masters, Antonio and Reed. Greetings, Master Antonio, Master Reed. Charlotte could not help but bow when she saw the 2 people in front of her. That's famous Master Antonio. This is the first time I've seen him up close and personal. He's so handsome. Lily panted as she stared at Antonio, especially when she saw the man's handsome face, which did not look like a human's, and his eyes contained wisdom. Her face was a little red. As a mage, Antonio had always been her idol, so naturally, seeing his idol up close excited her. Even the residents on both sides of the street were also excited. Greetings, Master Sword Saint, Master Astrologer, they greeted the newcomers as they knelt. Masters, why are you looking for me? The 2 older men were frowning as if they had something important to do. Something happened at home. Your senior brother, Samuel, seems to have been poisoned. The blood in his body has turned black. That poison is very strong. Anyone who touches even a little bit of it will die. Tina told me about that. However, Antonio and I are helpless in this. We need you, Reed replied with a serious expression. He did not know that his words had caused a great stir in the hearts of the people around Watson, especially Lana. The Sword Saint's disciple has been poisoned. Who is so bold to poison his disciple? Lana was surprised. Then, she was distracted by another matter. According to the Sword Saint's words, He and the astrologer had tried to heal his disciple, but they failed. Would Watson be able to help them? Did they have to ask Watson for help? Why did they think he could help? At first, Lana only thought Watson was an extraordinary genius, and that was fun for her. However, after a day, she realized that she knew too little about Watson, and the more she knew about him, the more she realized that it was not accurate to describe that youth as a genius. He was a monster shrouded in layers of fog. When she removed his veil, she did not feel joy but fear instead. Samuel was poisoned? How did he get poisoned? Watson was also puzzled by the words of his two masters. As for the specifics, we'll talk about it when we return to the Sword Saint's courtyard. Reed glanced at Klein, who was not far away from Watson. Or I can wait for you to get the 10 million gold coin reward first before bringing you back. There's no need, Master. We'll leave now. The 10 million gold coin reward was not that important to Watson because Klein was one of his men. The 10 million gold coins were his assets, but Samuel was different. Even though he did not like his senior brother very much, it was a human life after all. Watson could not just stand by and watch him die. With that in mind, he turned to Nightingale with an apologetic look. I'm sorry, Nightingale, I can't continue to accompany you. Quote, It's okay, Watson, you go ahead, I'll look for you next time. Suppressing her reluctance, Nightingale smiled and ruffled her hair. She knew that Watson would have to wait for a long time if he wanted to leave the academy, but she wanted to support him more than to stay by his side. Then I'll be leaving now. Watson felt warm toward Nightingale's thoughtfulness. He nodded, and a huge magic array appeared beneath his feet. He disappeared with Antonio and Reed, leaving behind a group of reserved people who gradually rose from the ground. Let's go. After looking around, Charlotte was the first to speak. She discovered that after Watson left, both Klein and Marcus had disappeared. Even though the number of noblemen in the crowd had decreased significantly, it seemed like those people were there for Watson. That discovery made Charlotte's heart hurt. Previously, she had only heard rumors about Watson. Then, she realized that he was a genius. Perhaps Watson's ability was on par with her sister, Nia. She had thought that Watson was no match for her sister, but now, she was no longer sure. At the same time, she made up her mind. There were still 2 days before she had to go to the Royal Academy. In those 2 days, she would have to work hard in her cultivation. She would try her best not to fall too far behind those monsters. Lana was also deep in thought. She moved the parasol above her head a little and felt a ray of sunlight shining on her face. I wonder if Watson can cure the poison in his senior brother's body. Today's trip was really worth it. Not only did it help me advance to gold tier, but I also obtained a lot of important information. Only that person would dare to attack the Sword Saint family. Interesting. In a certain room in the Sword Saint's courtyard, a shrill scream resounded throughout the entire courtyard. DMN it, I'm not sick or poisoned. Let me go, or else I won't be courteous with you. Tina, my dear Tina, can't you let me go? I'll explain everything to you. There's a reason why the blood in my body has turned black. Samuel was tied to a chair with anti-magic materials. Even a platinum tier elite would not be able to use their abilities in front of such materials. At the same time, the shrunken kingdom of the swords above Christina's head was suppressing Samuel. He could not move at all. He could not even release the blood in his body to corrode the anti-magic materials on his body. Senior brother Samuel, those who are sick will say that they are not sick. Don't worry, I have already asked my father and Master Antonio to go get Watson. As long as Watson is here, your illness will definitely be cured. Samuel's lips trembled. He opened his throat and could not make a sound. His eyes looked miserable. I really do. Samuel's body quivered. He wanted to continue begging for mercy. At that time, a junior brother suddenly ran in from outside. Miss Christina, Master and Master Antonio have brought Watson back with them. It seems there's hope for eldest senior brother. Watson is back? Let them in quickly. When Christina heard that, her face lit up. She knew that Watson was powerful ever since he imparted his knowledge to her. She had wanted to tell Watson before she told her father and Antonio about that matter. However, she could not find him after he left Count Grey's manor. So she went to her father instead. However, her father told her that a god created the poison, so he had no way of dealing with that. In the end, they decided that only Watson could solve that situation. Since Watson could fuse everything, even Starlight tier weapons, perhaps he could do the same with that poison. We're already here. As soon as Christina's voice fell, 3 people led by Watson walked in from outside. Reed came in front of Samuel. There was a hint of sadness in his eyes besides heartache. As for Samuel, he looked like he wanted to say something to him. Reed sighed. After that matter is over, I want you to give me a good explanation. Let Watson heal you first. Quote. Watson walked in front of Samuel. He raised his hand and scratched the back of Samuel's hand. Viscous black blood immediately oozed from the wound, causing his pupils to constrict. That is, he had already heard about Samuel's condition from his master. He had a rough guess in his heart. When he saw it, he was confident that the sticky black blood was the same as what he had seen in the tainted unicorn's body. In other words, the king was involved in it somehow. I can't believe that King Landhar III is so vicious. He actually poisoned the people around me? But why would he poison Samuel? Shouldn't he use it on me? Is it to test the effect of the poison and see if it works before using it on me? Or is the poison contagious? Will it spread to other people? Watson rubbed his chin as he thought about it. He really did not understand why King Landhar III would do that. He could not figure it out, no matter how hard he racked his brain. It seemed that the king was a thoughtful person. While he was lamenting, Watson heard Reed ask, "What do you think, Watson? Can you cure Samuel's illness?" Quote, "Of course, master, please rest assured. But before the treatment, I still need you to get me some potions, preferably gold tier ones. We do have gold tier potions here." Any potion? Yes, any gold tier potion is fine. Following Watson's order, Reed waved his hand, and his apprentice left the room. A moment later, he came back with a bottle of gold tier potion in his hand. The potion was bubbling and looked very magical. This is a gold tier advanced sword aura potion. After taking it, the sword aura can be strengthened 10 times. The effect can only last for an hour. Is this okay? It's perfect. Watson smiled and took the potion. After uncorking the bottle, he poured it into Samuel's mouth. At the same time, he activated the system fusion in his heart. System fusion, activate. He needed to fuse at least 2 or more things to activate the system fusion. According to the characteristics of the fusion, the more similar the fusion, the better the effect. According to his observation, Samuel's blood was corroded by the black substance. The only way to restore it to its original state was to extract the black substance from Samuel's body completely. Of course, there was another reason he asked for the potion. Congratulations on the successful fusion, Master. You have obtained a Starlight tier potion, the Toxic God's Corrosive Potion. Starlight tier potion. The Toxic God's Corrosive Potion. Effect. Smear on the body to get toxic bodily fluid. 1 drop can kill a Diamond tier existence. Additional abilities. Highly Toxic Divine Kingdom. Releases a divine kingdom filled with poison. Absolute Stickiness. Releases a highly toxic line filled with a stickiness that can be combined into any shape. At the same time, one cannot break free once stuck by the highly toxic line. Absolute Corrosion. Releases a liquid poison. Any substance will dissolve in the poison. And poison decomposition can transform the blood in the body into different effects. A poison below the Starlight tier. After the fusion was completed, some liquid appeared in the bottle that Watson had just emptied. It was pitch black and viscous. The spider web-like ends were attached to the inside of the bottle, and it crawled inside the bottle as if it had a life of its own. It looked extremely disgusting. Not bad. I've actually fused a Starlight tier potion. Now I can use it. Watson shook the potion and found that it was spontaneously extending to the surroundings as if it would climb onto the bodies of all the living creatures and kill them. He poured the black substance onto his palm. I immediately began to multiply rapidly. Spiderweb-like black lines wrapped around his body bit by bit, wrapping him inside. Then, the black substance squirmed non-stop, causing black claws to extend out of Watson's palm and jagged fangs to appear on his face. The area around his eyes had turned into a cloudy, indistinct, silvery white, long vertical pupil, exuding an evil aura. The strangest thing was that a monster's face had appeared at the back of Watson's head, and its jagged, huge mouth had opened at the base of his neck. Chapter 409. Geniuses and Lunatics. Hiss. Christina could not help but cover her mouth when she saw Watson like that, holding back her fear. The monster only appeared for a moment, and the pitch-black substance disappeared along Watson's body, allowing him to return to normal. Then, he stretched his hand outward, and a pitch-black line appeared and flew to the roof. It pulled his body upward, and then the black line was automatically cut off, turning into a squirming black liquid that dripped onto the ground, corroding the ground into a half-meter wide hole that was more than 10 meters deep. There was a pungent smell. That is the poison that my eldest senior brother was poisoned with just now. It's so terrifying. It's hard to imagine what kind of damage that level of poison would cause to the human body. The juniors in the room could not help but exclaim in admiration when they saw the terrifying poison. Some of them even bowed gratefully at Watson. "I'm really grateful to you. If you had not endured that poison, I'm afraid we would all have suffered, right?" They saw the viscous black liquid spreading out in all directions in the bottle, hitting the scene inside the bottle. If not for Watson, that pitch-black substance would definitely corrode all of them completely. "You're welcome. That is what I should do. And if you want to say thank you, you can thank Samuel." Watson turned to look at Samuel. After fusing the potion into his body, a lot of knowledge related to potions appeared in Watson's mind. Most of them were poisons. It was as if all the poisons in the world were in his control. As long as he willed it, he could decompose all kinds of poisons from his blood, including weak poisons that could make people fall asleep or enter a state of paralysis, as well as terrifying poisons that could make people's intestines burst with a drop. Even though I don't know why His Majesty poisoned Samuel, he has given me a great gift. Furthermore, I saved Samuel. I believe that Samuel will treat me much better in the future, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. While Watson thought about that, the forbidden material on Samuel's body was severed by Christina's sword aura. Samuel's face was pale. He slowly opened his eyes, and the powerful aura on his body immediately returned to platinum tier. After looking around, Samuel's eyes locked on Watson, and he jumped up in excitement. However, he did not thank Watson. Instead, he rushed to Watson and grabbed Watson's neck. "DMN Watson, return it to me. Return the gods remains to me. That's mine, it's my power." "Idiot, kneel." Without waiting for Watson to react, Reed snorted. A powerful sword aura filled the air and shattered Samuel's knees. He fell to the ground with a plop, his face filled with pain. "Samuel, is this how you treat the person who saved you? I've taught you to have a good attitude since you were young. You should know how to repay someone's kindness. Is that how you repay your benefactor?" Reed stared at Samuel coldly, causing Samuel to break out in cold sweat. His expression became much clearer. "Master, it's fine. I don't think senior brother Samuel did it on purpose." Watson rubbed his neck and reached out to comfort Reed. "Not on purpose? I don't think he was poisoned at all. He took the initiative to accept that poison in exchange for great power." "Samuel, am I wrong?" "Master, Samuel could not say anything. "Samuel, you really disappoint me. Before practicing the sword techniques, one must first be upright. If a person is not upright, then his sword will certainly not be strong enough. After doing such a thing, he would harm the rest of the family. I can't keep you here anymore. From now on, you are expelled from my sect and are no longer my disciple." Reed's voice became colder. He was so angry because Samuel's actions were too excessive, and also because he knew that after Samuel obtained that power, the first thing he did when he entered the courtyard was to fight with Christina. That made him suspect that Samuel wanted to use that power to hurt Christina. "Master, I know I'm wrong now. Please don't chase me away." Quote, Samuel could not help but panic. He lowered his head and kowtowed on the ground. "Master, I was bewitched by others to do such a thing. Besides Watson, I absolutely have no intention of hurting anyone else here." Good heavens, what did he mean by he would not hurt anyone other than me? Was he okay with hurting me? Watson said, "Master, leave this matter to me. I know the reason why senior brother Samuel has become like that. Let me have a good chat with him. He came for me, so only I can resolve that matter." "Watson, are you sure?" "Yes, Master Reed, since you think so, I won't stop you. You can have a good chat with Samuel. I'll go out with the others first." Reed snorted coldly, turned around, and left the room with the others. He was not a cold and heartless person. Although Samuel had done such a thing, the problem could be solved gently, and he did not want to lose his disciple. Boom! When the door closed, Watson came to the bedside and sat down. He waved at Samuel, and the other man's shattered knees were immediately covered with a layer of green light. The flesh quickly healed. Then, Samuel stood up. Now, there are only 2 of us left here. Furthermore, I have cast a soundproof spell in this room. Don't worry, no one will be able to hear our conversation. After Watson used the absolute cure to heal Samuel, he asked, if I'm not wrong, the thing in your body was given to you by the king, right? He gave you that thing so that you could kill me? Watson had suspected that the king would use poison to poison Samuel. Still, when he found out that Samuel was not poisoned but had voluntarily accepted the poison, there were explanations for his doubts. Poor Samuel had absorbed the power of the god of poison. Christina defeated him before he could do anything. Then, he was tied to a chair. It was pretty tragic. Watson, how do you know about that? Samuel's expression wavered for a moment before he revealed a determined expression. No matter how you know, I no longer have the power to fight against you. Kill me. He did not regret the fact that the king had given him strength. If he could go back in time, he would still choose to drink that poison. Of course, if there were anything that he wanted to change, he would confirm with the king that that poison was enough to allow him to resist everything. He did not even fight Watson after he drank it. It was too embarrassing. If I wanted to kill you, it would be easy. But if I did that, not only would it hurt Master, but Tina would also be sad. Shut up. Who are you to call her Tina? Samuel interrupted Watson's words, his eyes burning with flames, which made Watson smile slightly. It seems that the main reason you hate me is Tina. Don't worry, there is nothing between her and me. At least, nothing has happened. You didn't pursue the woman you like properly but chose to eliminate your love rival. That's too petty. Samuel did not refute Watson's words. After a long silence, he gritted his teeth and said, Watson, are you here to humiliate me? Of course not. I just said that it's very easy for me to kill you. I did not kill you because you're still useful to me. Watson jumped down from the bed and paced around the room with his hands behind his back. Let me get straight to the point. I want you to become my spy. Did the king want you to continue to contact him? Tell me everything that he told you. In return, I can give you the power that you desire. That power is stronger than whatever the king can give you. Quote, Watson, what exactly do you want to do? Samuel was confused about his purpose. Watson wanted him to spy on the king? Was it for a rebellion? My goal is not big. I just want to overthrow the ruler. Overthrow the rule of that country, that was all he wanted. Watson, you're a madman. Talking to a madman for so long, I'm stupid too. Samuel shook his head. In his opinion, what Watson had just said was crazy. A very famous proverb in the Holy Dragon Kingdom noted there was only a thin line between a genius and a madman. In Samuel's opinion, Watson was just like that. Watson might not know the kingdom's power or the king's right to say such words. The Holy Dragon Kingdom had more than 1 million troops on the surface, and among them were Dragon Knights, who were as powerful Platinum Tier elites. In addition, there were nearly 10 Platinum Tier existences. Those were only on the surface. It was terrifying to learn about the king's hidden forces. However, the king had bestowed God's remains to Samuel. It proved that the king must have many similar things. If the king wanted it, he might be able to create an army of Starlight Tier in an instant. What right did Watson have to overturn the king's rule? Based on Watson's Diamond Tier strength? Perhaps Watson was really very strong and was no weaker than his master, Reed. However, no matter how strong he was, there would be a moment when he would be exhausted. His master did not give up his arrogant words and said that one person could resist a kingdom's military. I know you don't believe what I said, Samuel. That's why I'm keeping you here to prove it to you. Watson stretched his right hand outward, and a black thread appeared on his fingertip. The black line was layered and continuously revolved, forming a small poisonous divine kingdom. The black liquid on the surface of the divine kingdom was squirming. Just looking at it made people think of death. Then, Watson stretched his other hand outward, and a kingdom in the shape of a huge sword appeared in his hand. Although it was shrinking, the sword aura still made people feel that it was very majestic. The kingdom of the sword and the kingdom of poison were the 2 kingdoms that he controlled. At that moment, he had fused the 2 kingdoms. System fusion, activate. Congratulations on fusing 2 Starlight Tier abilities, Master. You have obtained the peak Starlight Tier ability, Dual Divine Kingdom. Quote, following the system notification, the two completely different divine kingdoms were fused. The kingdom of the sword that was originally rushing toward the sky was gradually dyed black, exuding an aura of death. At the same time, the blades squirmed and became a living body. Black bubbles appeared on the surface of the skin. Under the bubbles, huge mouths with intersecting fangs were revealed. If one looked carefully, one would discover that those fangs were pitch-black blades. The size of the divine kingdom had increased significantly after the fusion, from 1 level to 2 levels. There was a clear gap between the upper and lower levels. The dual divine kingdoms emitted an aura 10 times stronger than the kingdom of poison or the kingdom of the sword. Samuel could not help but take 2 steps backward, his face filled with disbelief. That is, as you can see, that is my ability to fuse. I can fuse anything that exists in the world and raise its quality. The Starlight tier weapons that were previously made for Master Antonio and Master Reed were created using this kind of magic that can fuse objects and even creatures. Quote, Watson's casual words caused great waves in Samuel's heart. So, senior brother Samuel, do you choose to submit to me or refuse? I hope you will consider it carefully before making a decision. Watson, do I still have a choice? Watson showed his strength, revealed his trump card, and even stated that he wanted to overthrow the king. Samuel knew that it would be very difficult to end things if he did not choose to submit to Watson. The difference was only between voluntary or passive submission. Watson had also said that he could fuse living creatures, naturally, that included humans. Samuel did not doubt the authenticity of Watson's words at all. I'm sorry, senior brother Samuel, but you don't have a choice. I know, I submit. You're really a madman. I hope you can fulfill your promise and give me the power even the king can't give me. Otherwise, I'll be killed after I submit to you. Sighing, Samuel gritted his teeth and knelt on one knee toward Watson. Of course, I'll do what I say. Before I give you power, let me tell you something. Actually, the power that the king has given you is not weak. If you had not gone to fight Miss Christina but had chosen a random person in the courtyard, even if you had gone to fight Master, you would not have been so miserable. Watson, what do you mean? Could it be? It's not what you think. Before she fought you, Miss Christina had just received the power that I gave her. Watson smiled when he saw Samuel's darkened expression. Watson, it seems that my luck is not very good. Let's cut the crap. I should have died or been expelled by Master. It was you who protected me. As long as you can give me a power that's not weaker than Tina's, my life is yours. Samuel closed his eyes, his face full of determination. Sword Saint Reed had adopted him since he was very young. Reed had always been like his father, and Christina was the person he had liked since he was young. He did not have parents, and Reed was very strict with him. The gentle and kind Christina had always been the light in his heart. At that moment, he was not excited about the strength Watson was about to give him. Instead, he remembered what happened when he was young. When he was about 7 or 8 years old, he was playing with Christina in the yard. He put a ring made of straw on Christina's finger. At that time, Christina asked him with a blushed face, "Senior brother Samuel, what is this?" He had said, "This is the witness of our agreement. If you wear this ring, Tina, you will be my fiancée. From now on, I will always protect you. Right now, I don't have much money, so I can only give you a ring made of straw. I will work hard in my cultivation and become a sword saint as powerful as Master. Then, I can give you the most precious ring in the world. Senior brother Samuel, you are an idiot. How long do I have to wait for you to become as powerful as my father? It won't take long, at most 10 years. Perhaps I can do it in 3 to 5 years with my talent. Master has always praised my talent." The memory came to an abrupt end. Samuel's lips curled into a bitter smile as he said softly, "It has been more than 10 years since that time." Tina had also left nearly 10 years ago and gone to the City of Steel to pursue her dream. Thinking about it carefully, it seems like Tina had started to distance herself from me at that time. I always felt that she had forgotten the promise she made when we were young. But now it seems that I have been avoiding it and did not dare to fulfill the promise. In the end, I blamed others and even took it for granted that Tina liked me. How ridiculous was that? Since I've agreed to become your subordinate, from now on, I should let go of that relationship. It's obvious that your strength will be able to protect Tina better. As long as she can be happy, then I'll be satisfied. What is that guy mumbling about? Seeing that Samuel was crying and laughing at the same time, Watson scratched his head in confusion. Perhaps he was worried as he did not know how he would get the ability later, so he appeared to be afraid. Don't worry, Samuel. Miss Christina did not feel too bad when we did it previously. You don't have to worry. I can't believe that you guys even did that thing. Watson, you be asterisk starred. Although I'm unwilling, Tina can only be handed to you. Watson was trying to comfort Samuel, but he did not expect his words to cause a misunderstanding instead. So, what exactly is that guy talking about? Watson was even more confused. Then, he shook his head and decided to give Samuel the power to become his follower. He would think about that problem later. Chapter 410. The Sword Saint joined the camp. Outside Watson and Samuel's room, Reed leaned against the wall and sighed. I did not expect Samuel to do such a thing. Fortunately, Watson is here. Otherwise, I really don't know how things would have turned out. It's entirely my fault for not caring about that child back then. Otherwise, this might not have happened. What is even more unexpected is that His Majesty had come into contact with Samuel. What is His Majesty thinking? Quote, aside from heartache, Reed felt guilty. Samuel was a humble and polite child. After Watson arrived, Samuel gradually changed. It was hard to imagine that Samuel had changed so much in such a short period. Someone must have misled him, and the person who misled him could only be His Majesty. It seems that after that matter is over, I need to have a good chat with His Majesty. There's no need to talk with His Majesty, Reed. It's always difficult for us to understand his thoughts, but this time, I could, Antonio said. Oh, Antonio, you said that you understood His Majesty's thoughts. Then tell me, what is he thinking about? It has to be something related to Watson. What does that have to do with Watson? Reed frowned as if he was not very satisfied with Antonio's answer. If that were you, what would your first thought be if you saw a teenager become our disciples and had all kinds of strange abilities? Antonio's expression darkened. Do you still remember the first time the king met Watson, and he prepared a tainted unicorn at the banquet? What if I told you that the unicorn was not tainted and that the unicorn was not released so that Watson could show off his strength to liven things up, but the king had deliberately done that, trying to use that unicorn to kill him? Antonio, are you serious? Antonio's words were too disrespectful, causing Reed to frown. When have I ever joked with you? In fact, the king already knew about Watson by then. Previously, at the border, his subordinate had destroyed the Dragonspine snow mountain. He must have feared Watson since then. I'm sure you know that the young man's talent is better than ours. He will definitely become the strongest person in the world in the future. Even the king would be unable to control him. And how does the king usually treat those he can't control? Antonio, are you saying that the demoness church tragedy 10 years ago will happen again? It's very possible. I brought Watson to the royal city so you can take him as your disciple so he can learn sword techniques from you. But that's not the real reason. I didn't bring him here to learn, but I'm guessing you already know that. Reed thought for a moment and suddenly revealed a shocked expression at Antonio's question. Antonio, since you did not bring Watson here to learn, could it be? Did you bring him here to flirt with girls, then? As soon as Reed finished his words, Antonio, who had been looking forward to it, was instantly petrified. He looked like he was about to crack. Reed, how did you come to such a conclusion? What did I say to make you think of that? What else can a child of Watson's age do besides study and flirt with girls? I thought you brought him here to pick a suitable wife in the royal city. Watson's talent and his background at the border are disadvantageous to him. He can achieve more benefits if he can marry the daughter of a major noble family in the royal city. That way, His Majesty will not be able to make a move on Watson easily. Reed analyzed the situation thoughtfully as he stroked his chin. The more he explored it, the more proud he looked. As expected, no wonder Watson always has a girl by his side when he strolls outside. If it's a marriage alliance, I think that Tina is not bad. Even though she is a few years older than Watson, an older girl will take care of others. Furthermore, Tina is strong and good-looking. In short, she is quite suitable for Watson. Father, really, what are you talking about? Christina, who had been quietly listening to Reed and Antonio's conversation, was embarrassed when she heard that. There was nothing between her and Watson, they were just friends. To be precise, after she received the knowledge from Watson, she became his believer. Under such circumstances, it was really difficult for her to like Watson. What's wrong, Tina? Are you not satisfied with Watson? Watson is already a Diamond Tier elite at such a young age. He will definitely become a Starlight Tier elite and perhaps a living god that walks the earth in the future. Tina, you can benefit from being with him too. When that time comes, you will be the wife of a god. Furthermore, Watson is still very young right now, but he will definitely be a handsome man in the future. I don't know how many girls will be charmed by him. If that time comes, it will be too late to make a move. Father, stop talking. I won't talk to you anymore. The more Reed said, the redder Christina's face became. If she had a good impression of Watson, Christina could not say no. It was just that Watson was too young, and he repeatedly said things like how he was not interested in her. Why should she like him? Unable to endure Reed's teasing, Christina stomped her feet, turned around, and ran away while covering her face. A few years have passed, but Tina's personality is still so bashful, just like her mother. Watching Christina's back, Reed's lips curled up slightly, and his expression was somewhat nostalgic. Then, he turned his head to look at Antonio. All right, Tina has left. There is no one nearby who can hear our conversation. Antonio, now you can tell me in detail about your purpose in coming to the royal city and the relationship between Watson and the king. Reed, you said that just now to send Christina away, didn't you? No, actually, I meant what I said. I really think that Watson and Tina are very suitable for each other. Right now, Watson is only my disciple, but our relationship is still a little distant. If I can become his father-in-law, then he can give me whatever he wants. I think he can probably build a house for me using Starlight Tier materials. B-starred Reed, don't think about such things. If you want to build a house, Watson has to make it for you first. Besides, many people like Watson. Although your daughter is outstanding, Watson might not take a fancy to her. After retorting angrily, Antonio's expression turned serious. He began to tell Reed about what happened at the border, including the situation with the king's subordinate, who was his former disciple. After the man destroyed the Dragonspine Snow Mountain, they had fought with Watson. The main purpose of Watson's being at the royal city was to overthrow the king's rule. Of course, Antonio did not tell Reed about Watson's changes to Mount Creation and the border's strength. Antonio, is there anyone else who knows about this besides you? Also, what are your thoughts on the subject? Are you on Watson's side? After listening to Antonio's words, deep wrinkles appeared on Reed's face because of the tension. If Antonio had told him about that matter before, he would have thought that Antonio had gone crazy. Did he want to go against the entire kingdom for the sake of a disciple? What else could he be if not crazy? However, after seeing Watson, Reed felt like it was normal for Antonio to make such a choice. He could not even create something at Starlight Tier. What kind of an impact would it have on Watson if he was promoted to Starlight Tier? Watson was the most talented person he had ever seen in his life. He would bring endless possibilities to the future kingdom and even the world. Just the fact that Watson could become Starlight Tier meant that he had to take a gamble. Of course, I have to stand on my disciple's side. After all, you have seen what His Majesty has done in the past few years. Ever since Queen Avril died, His Majesty has become a completely different person. 10 years ago, the demoness cult massacre had caused rivers of blood to flow. Recently, the Dragonspine Snow Mountain had collapsed. Whether or not it indicates that His Majesty is going to war is still unclear. However, I feel a little uneasy. My mission is to protect the kingdom as commanded by the previous monarch, not to protect his descendants. Therefore, I will support whoever can bring benefits to the kingdom. Currently, it seems like Watson is the most suitable candidate. Watson was able to fuse the borders, turning them into a behemoth like Mount Creation, turning the borders from the poorest region of the kingdom into the wealthiest area in one go. If the entire kingdom was handed over to Watson, what kind of miracle could happen? It was probably not a problem for them to merge into a 10,000-year-old immortal kingdom. As for the problem that you're worried about, Reed, did I tell anyone else about that? Yes, I did tell someone. You're not saying it's me, right? Quote, of course not. Antonio, are you crazy? If this matter is leaked, with Watson's current strength and ability to contend with His Majesty, plus our strengths, it would be enough for His Majesty to kill us. Reed's expression immediately changed. The other person who knows about this is the border count, Sylvan. Oh, it's him. Then it's fine. Everyone knew that the border count did not have a good relationship with the king. Since Watson had gotten close to Sylvan, it was not impossible for him to overthrow the kingdom's ruler. Antonio, are you telling me so that I can join Watson's camp? Even though the status of the Sword Saint family is quite high, it is only high on the threat of invasion. We don't have any real power. My joining won't be able to motivate other noblemen. Furthermore, the Sword Saint family has always been neutral. We are not suited to join anyone's camp. Reed, don't tell me that it is useless. I will ask you again, will you join us? If you're not joining, then you can't be Watson's teacher from now onward. Also, you have to return all the things that Watson had given you, including the Starlight Tear Thread of Destiny. Antonio glanced at Reed and sneered. Who said I would remain neutral? Me? I'm sorry, Antonio, you might have heard that wrong. I'm joining you. When it came to the topic of the Thread of Destiny, Reed immediately changed his words resolutely. It was fine to go against the king, but it was not enough to make him hand over a Starlight Tier weapon. That might be the only time in his life that he had touched a Starlight Tier item. As for agreeing to Antonio's request, other than not wanting to hand over a Starlight Tier weapon, Reed had another consideration. The king had used Samuel to target Watson. That time it was Samuel, and the next time it might be Christina. To prevent such a thing from happening, he could only make up his mind to make the king abdicate. As for how to make Watson overthrow the king's rule, that is not an easy matter. We have to secretly rope in some ministers and empty a part of the army. It will take at least 5 years to act. After making up his mind, Reed and Antonio began to discuss in detail how to help Watson. The best way to make King Landhar III abdicate was to rope in all the ministers and generals in the court. When the time came, the king would become an empty shell. It was impossible not to abdicate, but it would be very difficult to do so since many of the ministers in the kingdom were the king's trusted aides. In addition, the king had spies all over the country. It was basically impossible not to leave any traces. If they revealed any flaws, they would be the first to lose their heads. While the two of them were distressed, the door to Samuel's room suddenly opened. Watson walked out slowly, followed by Samuel. He had a strange expression on his face, one mixed with excitement and confusion. Master Antonio, Master Reed, I have solved Samuel's problem. From now on, Samuel will not target me. Please take back the punishment you gave him previously. Master, what happened before was my fault. I sincerely apologize to you for troubling you and everyone else. As soon as Watson's voice fell, Samuel immediately walked toward Reed and knelt on one knee respectfully, apologizing in a low voice. Since Watson won't pursue this, then I have nothing more to say. But you have to remember that that will only happen once. If something like that happens again, I will cripple all of your cultivation and expel you from the sect. Don't worry, Master, I will remember this. Something like this will not happen again. If you want to ask why, Samuel, who was kneeling on the ground, opened his arms and revealed a fanatical and devout look at Watson. Because junior brother Watson has already bestowed me with great power and countless knowledge. That knowledge is comparable to the accumulation of hundreds of years of experience in the kingdom. That power far surpasses my understanding. Junior brother Watson is like the sun to me, illuminating the haze in my heart. Ah, praise the gods, praise junior brother Watson. What was going on? Antonio and Reed looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. How did Samuel become like that in such a short time? The contrast was too great. Samuel had planned to kill Watson just a few minutes ago. Watson, you didn't fuse Samuel with magic, did you? Antonio frowned. He knew that Watson could fuse his enemies and make them listen to him. It was one thing to fuse Samuel. After all, he had done that kind of thing, but the people in the courtyard were innocent. No, Master Antonio, junior brother Watson didn't do anything to me. He only gave me knowledge and power. My respect for him came from the bottom of my heart. Samuel quickly waved his hand to stop Antonio's speculation. What kind of power could make you like that? Reed asked curiously. Junior brother Watson, can I show them the power you gave me? Of course. Sensing Samuel's inquisitive look, Watson nodded. Samuel immediately turned around and extended his right hand to Reed. The rules in his hand twisted and twined, and a divine kingdom formed by a huge sword instantly appeared. The sword aura shot up to the sky. It's the kingdom of the sword. How did you learn that? Reed was shocked. He looked up and down at the huge sword-shaped kingdom in Samuel's hand in disbelief. After repeated confirmation, he realized that it was the kingdom of the sword. Even though Samuel only had platinum tier strength, the kingdom of the sword was less than 1% of the true divine kingdom's strength. It could still crush ordinary diamond tier elites. The divine kingdom of the sword is one of the abilities junior brother Watson gave me. Apart from that, I also learned about another divine kingdom. Samuel opened his other palm, and dense black toxic threads appeared. Those threads wriggled to form another highly toxic kingdom. Jagged fangs could be vaguely seen on the kingdom's walls. Samuel, who had released 2 divine kingdoms, had a complicated expression on his face. There was no longer any backlash when he released the highly toxic divine kingdom. After becoming Watson's follower, he had obtained a power that was several times stronger than what the king had bestowed it on him. However, it was difficult for him to be happy because that power was only a part of Watson. No matter how strong he became, he would never be a match for Watson. He would be Watson's subordinate for the rest of his life. He would only become stronger if Watson grew stronger. Just because of that, he would never be able to leave Watson again. Watson, how did you do that? Reed was dumbfounded. In a short period, his disciple had gone from an ordinary platinum tier elite to a genius who had mastered 2 types of divine kingdoms. Could Watson have other magical abilities other than fusing with magic? It's very simple. I just need Samuel to believe in me like he believes in a god. After establishing a connection with me, I'll be able to impart my power to him. Is it possible to treat yourself as a god? Reed muttered to himself in shock. He was at the peak of the diamond tier and firmly believed that he would be able to enter the starlight tier one day. He had thought that his goal was already quite far-reaching, but he did not expect that he would be nothing compared to Watson. The young man had just entered the diamond tier and had already begun to treat himself as a god. If he knew that Watson had started doing that when he was in the platinum tier, he would definitely be even more surprised. Of course, gods are only slightly stronger people. Since they can obtain the human's faith, then I can naturally do the same. If Master Reed doesn't believe me, I can teach you the method. You can find some time to try it, Watson said matter-of-factly. In the past, giving one's own ability to others was a miracle that only the gods could do. It was also a way for the gods to show their uniqueness. Watson's words were blasphemous. Fortunately, no one there was such a person. There's no need to wait. Let's do it now. Watson, teach me that method right now. Reed was wondering how he could help Watson to overthrow the king's rule. After seeing Watson and Samuel's appearance, he suddenly had an idea. If Watson's method was effective, then as long as he distributed his faith to others, he could build an invincible sword saint army. No matter what he faced, there was no need to be afraid.